Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
You, my friend, and just so you know, I'm not going to do too much roll call tonight, but in case you missed it, last night, one of our listeners, Ethereal Aura, you probably know him from the chat room, he passed away this morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That would have been 6 p.m. Amsterdam time. And he had been battling health problems for the last number of years, and he decided before he took his final injection to say goodbye to this planet, he decided to come into our chat room to say goodbye to everybody. Spaced Out Radio just meant that much to him over his last year and a half that he was with us. And we sat with him for about an hour after the show, kept the chat room open as long as he wanted to go. His father was with him, and everybody in our chat room was absolutely beautiful to him. Absolutely beautiful. And so tonight we dedicate this show to our good friend Ethereal Aura, who is now finding the answers. And I want to show you guys something. I put this sticky note here between the guitar strings. And I told him that if he ever wants to come on by the studio and hang out and listen to the show, that he could just remove that. So if you guys ever see that piece of paper move, we know who's doing it, because it sure as hell is not going to be me. You know, a lot of times we forget in this business that we do that there's real people who were interviewing, real people who were listening, and to be able to actually bond with all of you, it really shows the importance of what we do, not only with Spaced Out Radio, but with other shows as well. Like Lou Jimenez is here with his UCR. He's got a great crowd that listens to him during the week. You know, we sometimes see the names, but we don't know the faces. And this really does show that how much of a community we are and how much love there really is between what we do and what all of you are doing to be here with us tonight and other shows out there on a nightly basis, daily basis, weekly, monthly basis. And the fact that Ethereal Aura would literally want to come back to our chat room one final time and spend an hour with us before he said goodbye, it was extremely moving. Extremely moving. And if anybody wants to hear it, all you got to do is go to last night's show. Wait till after the show where I'm doing the editing for the radio program. And you could I leave the chat room up. You could read the comments. It hit me pretty hard. I had trouble sleeping last night, as I think many of you who were in there absolutely would as well. So this one's for him. And I want all of you guys out there to know as well that you mean the world to us. You guys, each and every one of you, Okay, when you're in this chat room and I say hello to you, or Lynn says hello to you, or the weekend crew says hello to you, that means something to us. And we want you to know that you guys are always our number one priority. This is why we're here. This is why we do it. And we love each and every one of you. Let's do the roundtable tonight. We got a great crew for Ethereal. Horns up. I lied. We got like 29 seconds. I don't know why I do that sometimes, but you know what? It's a good time, and let's make it happen. Let's have a great show tonight. The roundtable. We got some great people here. I'll introduce them momentarily. And a big thank you to Sally Vandervoort for kicking off the super chat tonight. Nicola for following on through. Now it's time, people, for Etheria. Horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. It is that time of the month once again where we like to have a little fun. I bring in some friends and we talk about the month that was in the weird and strange. Joining us tonight is a plethora of brainiacs as we bring in the panel for the SOR Roundtable. Joining us tonight, journalist, freelancer, BFC Communications president out of Vancouver, British Columbia, radio host as well, Bruce Claggett. We have the cookologist, Nicole Sakach, author and researcher from Unidentified Celebrity Review, the man who always wears a cape, his suit and tie. We got Lou Jimenez. We have Jessica Jones. She is the cryptid huntress and science Bob McGwier. Thank you, panel, for joining us, and thank you to all our audience who is tuning us in right now in our chat rooms. Let's kick it off right off the bat, okay, guys, because this month started off very, very heavy, okay? And what I mean by that is there was a documentary that came out called Who's Lou, talking about Luis Elizondo. This was one where there's a lot of controversy behind this. There's a lot of people praising it. There's a lot of people who are absolutely scathing this. There's a lot of people who believe it's a hit piece on Lou Elizondo himself. And Science Bob, I'm going to start with you on this one because you're somebody who has worked in the alphabet agencies. You are somebody who has been involved with very secret programs, NDAs with the government, the University of Virginia Tech University. I want to get your opinion. It's not so much about the documentary, but it's the groundswell of heat that was covered with this, Bob.
Well, look, anytime kind of people rise up in the ufology community, there's about 10 or 20% that are just going to take a sledgehammer and try to flatten them to the ground. And so Lou and Chris Mellon and Tom DeLonge, they started this stuff around To the Stars Academy, got these videos out. They are responsible for the NDAA. They are directly responsible for the National Defense Authorization Act. So Lou got a very high profile. He went around, did all sorts of things, was on a bunch of television shows, etc. And Lou is always walking right up to the edge of what will get him in trouble with his non-disclosure agreements with all the entities he's worked for and all the projects he's been involved with where he had needed his security clearance and signed an NDA. Lou has walked right up to the edge, as far as I can tell, in a bunch of things. And as a result of this, on occasion, Lou, it appears to me that on occasion, Lou attempting to say something analogous or explanatory about some of the things he's been involved with and or knows and wants to hint at or even just get out, he is not as careful as he should be. And but and look, let's face it. Look, a lot of people don't like John, but go to the Black Vault and look at the questions John asks about the people in and around in TTSA and the things they brought out, like the opening so-called news conference where there wasn't a single reporter in the audience, and they put up a picture of a fake balloon and a fake UFO, which was a balloon. I mean, look, there are questions. They have done things which are questionable, made claims that are not proven, but I can tell you from my own personal knowledge that Lou Elizondo is a national hero inside certain communities. This guy, I do not believe he is capable of having a bad lying bone in his body. And Lou is as fine as you know what. Yes, he is. Okay, so anyway, there's my long-winded answer.
Bob, I want to ask you a quick question about this, though, okay? Being a former spook yourself, all right, how do we know that Lou Elizondo is being straightforward with us? For decades in the UFO field, we have asked the question, and it has been told to me and many others privately, publicly, don't trust the people who worked at the three-letter agencies. They're only going to feed you a bunch of disinfo. And, with a lot of people, I want to trust Lou. I like Lou. I believe Lou. Okay. And, I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. And I will say this as somebody who is very critical and to this day, highly critical of To the Stars Academy. But for those out there who think he's a disinformation agent, that he doesn't have ufology's best interests in heart, how do we sit there and believe Luis Elizondo, especially after some of the scathing things that came out in this UFO documentary about him?
I just don't know about the documentary evidence for all the stuff that's in that thing. And I haven't spent time going through it jot and tittle. I just haven't. Why? I don't really care. Lou has done what he needed to do. He and Chris Mellon have done what was needed to be done to get the National Defense Authorization Act and fire Senator Gillibrand up to the point where there was no stopping her. And look, I'm just going to tell you, without the approval of the President of the United States, the thing never would have passed. So I'm just telling you how Washington works. If Biden had not wanted that in the NDAA, it never would have gone up. So the President of the United States approved it, and within 2 weeks, he signed it. So Lou and Chris and all of those people in the military that have experienced all this stuff, they convinced Congress to act. And I think we have a real chance to actually find out stuff. Has Lou been a little careless maybe in some of his words? Yes. Is all that crazy crap inside there true? And I'm going to tell you, as someone who operated inside and in and around the intelligence community for decades, people can make accusations against you and you're unable to defend yourself no matter how truthful you are, because your defense would involve the divulgence of classified information and you're going to prison.
Lou Jimenez, you have developed a very strong relationship with Lou Elizondo, and much like us here at Spaced Out Radio, I'm sure you were very shocked to find pieces of your interview that were associated with this documentary called Who's Lou, which has since been taken down from YouTube for the time being, with a bunch of copyright strikes that have been placed against it. First off, how did you feel when you saw your report on there, or a part of your interview on there, and what was your overall thoughts of this piece as someone who has got to know Lou over the last year?
Well, my first initial thoughts when I saw my clip in there, I was like, That's interesting. But it didn't shock me just because I had seen everyone else's clips in there before it got to mine. I was annoyed at first. And then I watched the film and I got even more annoyed, you know. I mean, I'm an actor in Los Angeles. I've written films, I've edited films, I've been in films. This was not a good film. Even if there were good points made in it, which I don't think there were many, if any, at all. A lot of this stuff was kind of irrelevant. It was clear that the filmmaker had a bias. It was clear that the filmmaker had never made a film before. It was just, it didn't, even if everything in there was true, nobody would have stuck around, I think, to the end to watch it. So from that aspect, just from a film perspective, it was not a good film. I thought when I saw my clip, I was like, well, I don't like it, but to me, it seemed like it was fair use only because there was narration over it and all this other stuff. So I was like, you know, it's YouTube. It doesn't surprise me. If I was Thomas Fessler, I know Thomas Fessler is the clip that really got used the most. He was pretty upset, and he put a copyright strike on it, and it went through. It seems to have worked, and so did TTSA. So it's taken down.
Back up now. It seems to be
Is it back up?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if it's back up on YouTube, then yeah, I mean, I think it's because it is fair use. YouTube is kind of the Wild West. We're not, you know, most of these channels are not backed by studios, so we don't have a team of lawyers to make sure that nobody uses our footage. I think almost any footage is fair use if you're making a commentary on it, and I think that's what he was doing. So, look. If you're gonna put yourself out there as a public figure, you're gonna. I would expect, especially an intelligence officer would just assume stuff like this was gonna happen. If this story, say, actually goes to the level that we all hope it goes to, which is some sort of significant disclosure, there's going to be paparazzi all around his ranch in Wyoming, taking pictures of him and his family. Like, that should be something he's got to prepare for if he isn't already, if this is going to go where we all, again, hope it goes. Yeah, I mean, but I think Lou was pretty pissed. I can't speak for him, but if I had to assume, just based off a couple of interviews I've seen him do, I think he was just pissed off that they brought his family into it, because it was irrelevant to the documentary, and it was there just to be there, and there was no point to it. And so to kind of dox his family, that's, I think,
I didn't like that part either.
There. Yeah, you know, it just didn't. As a viewer, I was like, I felt dirty watching it. And so, you know, I can understand him being upset. Like, he has every right to be upset. But the beautiful thing about America is that you can have your soapbox, and if what you're saying on your soapbox sucks or doesn't resonate, nobody's going to watch it or listen to it or buy it. And I think that's exactly what's happening with this film. I mean, the last time I saw it was on YouTube. It didn't even have 3,000 hits, and it'd been up for a couple days. So it's not like this movie is racing across America and people are rushing to see it. Nobody knows about it. It's like, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the Lou Elizondo story. So that's kind of how I feel about the film.
Well, I want to bring in Nicole Sakach because, you know, I did talk to the filmmaker about using our pieces in there, and, you know, him and I talked about it, and I got to admit, there was pieces in there that I did like. Okay. I like the TTSA stuff. I like the fact that he called out the Stars Academy for some of the games that they were playing. I did not like the family stuff. Okay, I thought that was irrelevant. But Nicole Sakach, you've been working with Grant Cameron a long time. You have been someone who has been very deep into the UFO field. A lot of people will look at you and say, well, where's Nicole's resume? But behind the scenes is where you do your best work in communication, phone calls, emails, and deep research along those lines. When you look at this film, what do you think it was a hit piece? Do you think it was something that was necessary and needed because it may get Lou to talk a little bit more and a little bit more openly rather than robotic?
No, I don't think it was a hit piece. I think this is like a flash in the pan, honestly. If you do your research and if you look a little bit online or just go to the channel, you see he has never done anything like this before, you know? So, I mean, kudos for showing the initiative and putting the time behind a project. So I can give Manny props for that, because instead of just flapping your yap, you know, he at least was motivated enough to do something. Now, should he have maybe sought some advice on, you know, what to leave out and what to put in, or better ways to ask questions? Sure. So I would say, aside from all the negativity, you know, somebody needs to mentor him. You know, he needs to reach out to some people and just get some help on his next project. I think lesson learned. And then on the other hand, that this phrase comes up a lot in ufology, that we are our own worst enemy. You know, whether it comes to disinformation or turning on each other, you know, ufology can be its own worst enemy. And I honestly can't believe this has gotten as much airtime, FaceTime, flap time, Twitter time. I just can't, I don't know. It's just shame on us. Why didn't we let it just go silently into the shadows? And there, that's all I have to say.
Well, I think it caused a notable ruckus because, you know, there is a giant piece of the puzzle called UFO Twitter that no matter who is part of the government, they will support them tooth and nail, because they do believe, Nicole, it is the route to disclosure.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that, and I think posing questions and pushing people to give answers, you know, they can be done in a tactful way. I didn't watch this film in its entirety. I watched it in pieces, and I didn't necessarily enjoy it. But it's like I said, I don't know. I've sat through a lot of bad stuff before, like, and that's where I don't know. That's where my critique goes. It's like, okay, forget about what he's saying or not saying. He needs help. You know, that's the angle I take in networking. Like, yeah.
Right.
Lou, I don't think this is going to give him any like pressure to spill more secrets. Like, I think if, like I said, if anything, this proves some of the worst sides of ourselves or our community. Right. You know, why are we even entertaining this? I mean, he brought the man's family into this.
All right, Bruce Claggett, I want to bring you in on this here for a moment, because I know you're not a ufologist. I know that you kind of, you know, follow the scene from the side. But one thing that you are is a professional journalist, a professional communications officer. You have been an instructor in journalism at the British Columbia Institute of Technology. And, you know, I mean, outside a fantastic beard and mustache combination, you know, I understand that. I want to ask you, from a journalism point of view, it is very dangerous with the way we're seeing journalism kind of go today, from amateur journalism that we see a lot of online with blogs, vlogs, podcasts, YouTube channels, compared to professional journalism, where we're now seeing a lot of opinion thrown into stories rather than providing true fact and point and counterpoint journalism. My question is, how dangerous is journalism getting when people are out there? And it's not just about this film, it's about everywhere. It could be sports, it could be UFOs, it could be knitting, for instance, you know, are giving way more opinion and using opinion as fact rather than actual facts.
Well, Dave, you've hit the nail on the head, and we should actually acknowledge that you've done your fair share of reporting in your career yourself, and you know what good journalism is. The problem has always been, and is even more so now with social media, what is journalism? Who is a journalist? And I like to go to that key part of the word journal. A journalist is someone who journals. They observe and they record and present a story. Yes, that also means they ask very good questions and they hold, the powers that be and the people with information that aren't sharing it. They hold them to account and bring out those stories. But at the end of the day, a journalist should be somebody who journals. Now, journalists traditionally have not done their, well, I shouldn't say traditionally, I would say more recently, they haven't done their due diligence. They have blurred the lines themselves between journalist and editorialist or opinionist, and it's not the journalist's job to opine. And I think that has led to other people with greater interests in certain subject matters being the ones that want to go out and ask the questions. So there's a pro side and a con side. The pro side is you have all these subject matter experts. You have them on all the time. You've got 5 people, 5 other squares, and my square isn't one of them, that are experts in an area. Okay. And they know the right questions to ask. And then you've got journalism, the traditional journalism out there. And those are people who you go to and society wants to go to as a validator. But the problem is those people haven't been validating. And I think that's where we really run into a problem, Dave.
And I appreciate that. And Jessica, I want to get you in here on this because I know you're more of the Bigfoot world than you are of the UFO world, even though you do enjoy the subjects. And I'm not sure if you've watched this film or not, but just an overall take, because I think this kind of attitude where we're conducting a lot of opinion rather than using fact also bleeds over to the Sasquatch world as well, where we see a lot of people out there, saying this is what this creature is. It can't be anything else. If you don't believe me, you're an idiot. And if you don't take what I say as true fact, then, well, it sucks to be you. We see this all the time in any field like this. Why do you think that is?
Well, speaking from experience, I come from, several different teams where we all have very open minds and we're all able to change our minds when we get new evidence, And so, I don't experience that in the field when, in my research, but I know people are like that. And, I don't understand why people would be that way. But yeah, there's just so much going on. As far as, I do research Bigfoot, but the first time I ever went out to research Bigfoot, I had a UFO flying over my head, and, we have so much activity that's just all over the board, and a lot of the people that I researched with were one time members of particular Bigfooting groups that everyone's aware of, or a UFO group, but we've all come together because we all see that all of these fields are related. Okay. And so we're not just Bigfooters. We're not just UFO people, we're not just ghost hunters, we're everything. So, yeah, it's a shame, and it's talking about this gentleman. I did not watch this movie or this show, but it sounds like, he's being discredited for coming out. And, I don't know the entire story behind this, but, we don't come out with all of our research because no matter how much you put out there and how much research you do, there's always going to be people that are going to make fun of you and not believe you and discredit you no matter what.
Beautiful. Good way to end it as we go to our first break here at the bottom of the hour. We have Bruce Claggett, Nicole Sakach, Lou Jimenez from UCR, Jessica Jones from Into the Portal, and Science Bob McGwier. When we come back, we're going to stick with Lou Elizondo because if you saw his interview earlier this week with the UFO Garage, he made a couple interesting comments about Roswell and missing people when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're good.
I'm telling you, Bruce is right on the money, and you always are, Dave. These people that are writing this stuff and putting crap up, they're not journalists. They haven't spent a single day in a journalism class or ever worked for an editor that would beat their ass for this stuff they're writing.
Or making documentary films and never have taken a film class.
Oh my God. I mean, it's just pathetic.
Not to say that you can't be a filmmaker or have not taken a film class and try to make a film. Everybody's
Jeremy Corbell.
There's a lot of people who've actually done it and been pretty successful.
And that's kind of the route I was going. And I don't.
Oh yeah, but look, he was George's apprentice. He was George's apprentice. He had a professional training him.
Well, and that's what I mean. If you're going to try to do this caliber of something, you seek out people who have, done this stuff before. But I'll give anybody props for, like I said, being motivated to do something. But, and I don't like calling out UFO Twitter, but it is kind of, or not just UFO Twitter, but just like this online gossip of, did you see this? Did you see this? And it's like, we all should have just stopped it. Should have been just done after a day, and it erupted into like 4 days of channels back and forth talking about it and making it way bigger than
I just thought the best thing to do was to not talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the more attention you give it, and the more people will go, oh, what's this Who's Lou movie? I figured let's just not talk about it,
Then that's what I didn't mention, was that the intent all along, to just do this kind of, I don't want to say hit piece, because it needs to be better to be a hit piece, but a smear campaign maybe, or what do you call it when clickbait is like a documentary clickbait for somebody's other YouTube stuff, or to make a name for themselves. Like
Bruce Claggett, I got a quick question here for you. Sorry to cut you off there, Nicole. Can you please confirm with people who may be listening to this and not in our chat room that I actually did work in radio and journalism, and that I actually do have radio stations that broadcast this show? Because believe it or not, there is a whole conglomerate of people out there who think I am bullshitting about this.
Yeah, I just want to check my bank account to see if you paid me the money.
I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, I don't know who would question that. I mean, Dave, you're a well-known journalist in British Columbia, and you've got a reputation, and you did a fantastic job when you were out on the beat. I mean, everything that you know about journalism came from your training as a journalist.
Yeah.
And yes, you worked in radio. Yes, absolutely. For years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I say thank you to Spaghetti Lee in the chat room?
Yeah.
He brought up, he said it was, you know what he said? He said it was no Zapruder film. I can't say it right. That's it exactly. Thank you, Spaghetti Lee.
Well, the best thing that Zapruder did was take the film and not say a damn thing. He let people who had brains comment on it.
Hey, Lou Jimenez, we asked you a month ago. We're going to re-ask you now because there's only 2 months left. Are you going to come to our Vegas party?
Oh, man. What month is it again?
April 22nd to 24th.
April 22nd to 24th. I might be doing the Big Phone Home around then. So I'm not 100% sure. I got to get back to you because I'm in the middle of planning it right now. We were thinking about doing it around the same time we did the first one, which was April 24th.
Oh yeah.
So
I'd love to decomplete.
Yeah, but I mean, thanks for telling me because now I'm going to definitely try and make sure it doesn't conflict with what you guys are doing.
Well,
for everybody to get back home.
I just think that
Vegas.
I just think it would be good to have you there, considering there's going to be a lot of people in the UFO world that are just showing up there and hanging out with us.
Yeah,
and it would be a good thing for you.
I'm
sounds
bringing
fun.
I'm bringing Bob McGwier Party Central. My travel trailer will be behind my truck.
I like to under promise, over deliver.
All right. Well, hopefully we can see you there, buddy. All right, guys, we have a few seconds. Thank you to all of the super chatters out there. I will name you in the next half hour, I promise. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you all with us. My name is Dave Scott. Really appreciate you taking the time to check out the Woo with us. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have the plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. The roundtable continues tonight. Nicole Sakach, Science Bob McGwier, Jessica Jones, Lou Jimenez, Bruce Claggett, all here giving their great opinions on the subjects at hand. And we're going to stick with Lou Elizondo here for a moment. Nicole, we're going to start with you. On the UFO Garage, there were questions asked from the audience. And one of the audience questions was, what about Roswell? Are we ever going to hear more about Roswell? And Lou started off by saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Roswell, although it is a cold case, still has a lot of interesting aspects that people do not ask questions about. Some of the things he pointed out. Number one, if it was a Mylar balloon, why send an entire Army group? Pardon me, because I'm not military. I don't know the proper terminology for that. But why send an entire Army group out there with a commanding officer rather than a staff sergeant, a jeep, and a couple of grunts to go clean it up? The other thing that he mentioned about this, Nicole, was about the tractor trailer that came along. And he said, people, you have to understand, you do not bring a giant 3-axle tractor trailer, which is meant for heavy hauling, to a Mylar balloon that's on the ground. To me, this was very telling because Roswell, since the Nimitz incident came out, has been very ignored. Does this open up the door, comments like this by Lou Elizondo, to look into Roswell? Is he teasing us, as he always says, read between the lines of what I'm saying, people? Okay, is he teasing us that do not drop Roswell? Something happened there.
I would say, in my opinion, I would say this is one of those golden nuggets that read behind the line or between the lines, like you said. And I mean, whether Lou says it or not, there are those of us that have been saying all through this, reset ufology from Nimitz forward, Roswell, Roswell, Roswell. And there were those of us that hoping what has now turned into OAMSG, from the inception, we were like, are we going to get Roswell? Are we going to get Roswell? And, we didn't right out of the gate, but we were never told, like, behind the scenes, no, like, that's never going to happen. So I think that's a good tell. I think that's a good lead. I think it is also maybe a nod to, like he said, there's certain things that people just don't ask about Roswell. And there's also things they just have flat out wrong about Roswell because it's such a pop culture thing of our community. It's in every movie, even the movie ufologists or movie or TV shows ufologists help with, it's still bonked up. Like, but I think some of the interesting things, like Lou might be alluding to, are crash retrieval, crash retrieval, crash retrieval. Just think along those lines, which we are asking questions. But you always get the skeptical, how do these things fly to Earth and then just crash? And then you hear, oh, it's a big giant lightning storm. But what you hear behind the scenes a lot is we were trying to take these things down. We were trying to capture them, at which I think there's certain terminology that we're still hearing in how the Navy is observing, like observe and capture. I think I've heard a few times observe, and it sounds like, they're trying to get it, whatever they're going to do with it. But we do know there was a time in ufology where they were shooting at these things. And they kind of learned their lesson a few times. But we've also heard these rumors of these UFO killers. Like, we developed something that could take them out of the sky. So I think maybe those might be some of the questions that, we need to be pushing and answering, or trying to get answers for right now. Did we have that capability to disrupt these things? And did we do Roswell on purpose, or was it an accident?
All right, let's get over to Lou Jimenez. Your opinion on that. Is Roswell still relevant?
I'm just going to start out by saying, Bruce, you're dead ringer for, I believe, Michael Gross was the name of the actor who played the dad on Family Ties.
Yes.
If they reboot that show, come to Hollywood, baby. I'll get you an audition.
That's very kind of you. Add 75 pounds and maybe that's okay.
What? You add 75 pounds to you or to him?
Yeah, no, to him, and you'd be. I'm a much bigger guy than him.
Nah.
Very
dead ringer. You're a sexy man. You're a sexy man, is what I'm saying. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Roswell.
Okay. What he said. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm gonna disagree with my man Lou. I think if it was a weather balloon, it was a Project Mogul weather balloon, which in some cases these things reached up to over 500 feet in length. That's a lot of material. That's as big as the Washington Monument. So I could see a whole platoon of guys going out to recover that stuff, to make sure that none of it falls into any Russian hands, because it was a very, 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 very top secret, one of the most top secret crafts, if we want to consider, or balloons or instruments that our intelligence systems had. That's if it was a balloon. That's the part where I disagree with Lou. I think the response is just the same, whether it's a crashed UFO or a top secret, ultra secret weather balloon. I think the response is the same, is what I'm getting at.
Well, there you go. There you go, Bob. You were shaking your head no.
Yes. I know. I saw Bob.
You don't need an 18-wheeler to pick up a Mylar balloon. And
but Bob,
hang on. Let me go.
Right.
You had your time. I'm going now.
All right.
Okay. You do not need a platoon of people to cover up a piece of Mylar and aluminum foil over a cardboard reflector. There was nothing classified in Project Mogul balloons. Nothing. The project and the data it gathered is what's classified. They designed it so if it fell in the middle of the Russian countryside, they couldn't get anything out of it. Okay, there's nothing classified in that balloon. Okay, and I want people to not be lazy. Go and read Don Schmidt and Tom Carey's Witness to Roswell, or any book that Kevin Randall and Don Schmidt wrote, and sit there and lie to yourself and say this was an effing balloon.
Or I'll shamelessly plug my YouTube channel, because I've interviewed Don several times and I can listen to him for hours talk about Roswell. I do want to bring up too, of course, we can talk about alien bodies, but often people don't talk about 2 crashes, you know. It wasn't just one, you know, so there's 2 there. So that could be something else.
I love what UFO Jane says. She says maybe it was a UFO that crashed into a Project Mobile balloon.
That might be true.
And I think that's actually pretty close to the truth. But here's the only thing I'll say, Bob, is that I think you're just writing off, and you could be 100% correct in that. I'll defer to you because you're in the intelligence communities. Maybe that balloon and its parts didn't have anything that could be reverse engineered and used against in a counterintelligence way. So I'll also see that point. But to just write it off as just a balloon. It was just a balloon. I think that's underselling how sophisticated these machines and listening devices were. It was more than just a balloon. It was a way to keep up with the Russians. It was a way to make sure that we weren't getting behind, and it was a very important piece of technology. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I think it's just a little bit unfair for us to yell, "Oh, it was just a balloon," and we're lying to ourselves if we just say it was just a normal Mylar balloon. It wasn't. It wasn't just a normal Mylar balloon.
My only point is read those books. They have tons of listed documentary evidence that show that is not a feasible explanation. It's just not feasible.
Decades of work. And I will add that Stanton Friedman was the first to investigate, civilian or otherwise. So you could look into Stanton's work as well.
Jessica Jones, would you back up your trailer to a Mylar balloon? I know you like the heavy haul here.
No, I would not do that. You don't need a trailer for that. No, now I need a trailer to carry a Bigfoot home with me, but I'm not taking that home. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
how big is your trailer?
She runs them B trains with the 2 trailers there, in her spare time, right?
No,
but
not hardly.
But Jessica, in regards to the whole Roswell crash and everything, I mean, do you think it's still relative in 2021 that we're talking about a crash that happened in 1947, or should we be moving on?
Yeah, I mean, it's relevant because it's kind of opening up, and that's how everyone sees aliens, like it's that typical like Roswell alien and that spaceship, and it's super outdated in my opinion, but people it's like they're getting their toes wet, like the general public, like it is. I think it is important. I mean, it's kind of like we're going in stages here. Does that make sense? It's kind of like we're going in stages. Like the things that I've seen don't look like that. I've had ET contact. I've seen spacecraft and all that kind of stuff in the field. And I think it's relevant, but I think that it's just a way to get the general public used to seeing something, but it's very outdated. Yeah.
How about you, Bruce Claggett? Is it still relevant 70 years later?
Relevant is what you make of it. Good stories are good stories. When I say story, I don't mean something that's fictitious, but it could be fictitious. But our minds are curious. We want to know things. And, when you have lots of information out there and you start to ponder questions, that's a good thing. And people are still doing it today because, hey, there are a lot of questions out there. But get back to what Bob said. It's there's no excuse for not reading up. And you've got to do your research. You can't just go to one source and just stick to one area and think, you know what, I hear this person, I like this person, I'm going to trust this person, and that's the end of it. Read the facts and then ask your good questions. And that's where your good story will take on its own life, Dave.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's get to the second part of this question, because the other statement that Elizondo made, he was asked by a listener about the missing 411 people. Are people vanishing? And the one thing that I learned from the late Butch Witkowski was annually in the United States, and these are FBI stats, 1.3 million Americans go missing annually. when you break it all down from murders to kidnappings to people running away, people going off the grid, people leaving the country and moving elsewhere without telling anybody, so on and so forth, it leaves about annually, on average, 65,000 people who are unaccounted for, that vanished without a trace, like into thin air. And when Lou was asked about this, Bob, it was something that he was saying, we need to get people out there. He didn't mention David Paulides' work, but he did say that he was very, very intrigued that there is no governing body looking into these people who just vanish under mysterious circumstances. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, that's a huge statement that he is saying right there.
Big time. And look, if you want to really get into it, go and listen to the stories that Dave Paulides puts up in his Can-Am Missing, and then earlier Missing 411, and the documentary evidence that he presents over and over and over again, where the National Park Service absolutely covers up how many people go missing in and around national parks. And that's just one place. He focuses on national parks and places like that, but it's documentary evidence. And not only that, he can present documentary evidence that he has successfully fought off, but that the National Park Service has absolutely targeted him for bringing these stories out. The facts are people go missing. And if you listen to him, he comes so close to saying, oh, it's Bigfoot or a portal or something. He doesn't come out and say it, but you can just hear the kind of things he's hinting at. And I'm not claiming he's saying it, but go listen to the hinting. He is hinting that it's paranormal.
Dave, let me jump in here. You know, I spent 30 years in the news business, working as a reporter, a newscaster, a talk show host, and a whole bunch of other things. And in my 30 years, I've heard of so many stories of people that were missing, and everyone talked about it for about a month, and it was forgotten. And there are still people that are missing today that made headline news when they went missing, and there's no explanation for it. These are people, some of them, that have no history of throwing a temper tantrum and just going out. They have no debt to hide, nothing in there. They just drop off the face of the earth. And even more so, we had, and many people here will remember a few years ago, a series of feet that were found washed up on the shores around the Pacific Northwest and southwestern British Columbia. And there was no explanation for the majority of them. Just feet in shoes. There's so many questions here that get lost in all the news and the news cycle, but missing people is one of them. And people should think, what is the story here? Because their families are still wondering, and their families, get the attention at first, and then a few years later, it's just forgotten, except for the people that know that somebody went missing.
Bruce, I'm not sure you know this stat or not, but for David Paulides, if you lay a map down of all the missing people, number one in North America is Yosemite National Park. Number two is the Cascade Mountains of British Columbia for people who vanish without a trace.
Yeah, and you know what? Anyone that comes up with an answer of that is just going to guess. I mean, yeah, I could guess some people want to live off the grid. And maybe that's the case for a few of them. But the numbers are astonishing of how many people went missing. And they go right across a big section of society with different ages and different reasons and where they came from and their backstories. It doesn't make sense that it's all people that want to go into a park set, go into the parks, live in the woods or whatever. And they just want to live off the grid. That doesn't make sense. I don't buy that for a second. There's something bigger there. And I wish somebody would look into it in a really big way and kind of connect the dots and start to ask some really good questions.
All right, Lou Jimenez, let's get your opinion on this as we got about 4 minutes to go here before the break.
Ooh, you know what? This is not my expertise. I mean, I know David Politis's work. I think I'm fascinated by it. I'd love to talk to him. Do you know, has anybody, I mean, I know you just said, Science Bob, that he's come real close to saying it's a Bigfoot or a portal, but has he ever said anywhere what his sort of theory is on why these people are missing?
Okay, so let me say this. He's published multiple books on Bigfoot. He is a published author about serious research he did on Bigfoot. He is not opposed to thinking about woo, and I think he's taking the right approach. Present the facts, not the interpretations, because if he turns out to be wrong, his people believing and trusting in him is hurt. But he believes something truly weird is going on. And just listen to the under 3 or 4 year old cases where kids go off, they're missing, and they find them 20 kilometers away from where these kids disappeared, and they're alive and in freezing weather. It's just not possible for an infant to walk off 20 kilometers in sub-freezing weather and something weird not happening.
I'm going to jump in there. And Bob is right. We had a famous case here in Canada, right in the Victoria area, of a little 3-year-old kid, I believe he is 3 years old, Michael Dunahee, who disappeared without a trace. And there was no explanation whatsoever. And one of the biggest searches that was ever launched in Canadian history, and people looking into it, and no explanation whatsoever. Michael Dunahee, have a chance to look it up. And if you look it up, if you Google it, you'll think, you know what, something bigger is happening here.
Oh, I fully agree. Jessica, we got 2 minutes. Missing people. Bigfoot gets blamed for it sometimes. Do you think this is really happening?
Actually, for people who know my team's research, we have experienced something in the field that we consider to be a portal. And so no, I don't believe that Bigfoot is actually kidnapping people and taking them into caves and things like that. Could be, but my team has found something that we look into even more, is this black cube that showed up in the middle of a field one evening. We were doing some research at this place we call the Meadow. And 2 team members were sent towards this thing that showed up that was only seen on the thermal and FLIR. And as they walked up to it, their heat signatures disappeared and the entire environment changed. And they couldn't see the stars anymore, and they lost radio contact. And then they both walked backwards back out, and their heat signatures reappeared, and this box dissipated and disappeared. So we have this all documented. And I'm sure the public will be seeing it soon, but we haven't released it yet. But yeah, we think that people are possibly going into these portals and disappearing.
I think David Politis believes it's portals. I really do.
Well, we have it documented.
Nicole, 45 seconds.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but did the portal reach out and take anybody, or is it something they have to go into?
Well, that's a good question, because this thing just kind of showed up in the field. It was a gigantic box. And when I say box, it was like a cube, and you couldn't see it with your eyes. You could only see it with your thermal imaging device. Wow. So, and now it did move. So I don't know. It may be taking people, or people may just be walking into them unknowingly.
I think they're walking into them. And Nicole, we'll get your comments when we come back from the break on this, as we got a great panel tonight on the SOR Roundtable. Nicole Sakach, Science Bob McGwier, Bruce Claggett, Jessica Jones from UCR, Lou Jimenez. We call him Super Lou around here. Great hair tonight, Lou. Honestly, looks fantastic. When we come back, we're also going to get into the Mandela effect. What's your favorite Mandela effect? We'll find out the panels when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. This is good stuff so far here, guys.
I'm
Good
loving
stuff
it.
here.
I'm loving it.
I hope no one
This
steals
is
my
great, Dave.
Mandela effect. I've got a good one.
Oh, I got a couple of them.
Okay, cool.
Dave,
Yeah,
how much
Bruce.
time do I have here? Can I just take a quick?
Yeah, you got
10-100?
6 minutes. Yeah,
Okay,
you got
thanks.
6 minutes. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Now, here's the thing. I'm curious to pick your brain on this, Bob, because just to get back to Roswell for a second.
Yep.
And the question is, is it relevant these days? And
Oh, that's a great question, and I have an argument.
Yeah, well, when you hear Lou Elizondo talk about it, he's like, the problem is when I put that in Roswell in front of a senator or congressman, it's such a rich, vast story and history that you really need to devote a week to if you're lucky, and that a senator or congressman just doesn't have the time to devote to that story.
I believe that's the reason that they excluded everything before the Nimitz incident. But look, here's my point. Everything about this subject, everything we know, everything in response changed in 1945 to 52. Everything changed. Harry Truman had written up and passed the National Security Act. He created the CIA, the National Security Agency, etc. Everything changed about our approach to these unknown flying objects. And it happened all around Roswell. And we know from Randall, Carey, and Schmidt's work that they brutally violated hundreds and hundreds of people's civil rights to cover up more than a balloon. I'm just telling you, you don't do that for a balloon that has no marks on it whatsoever. The evidence is just overwhelming that it's a lot more than a balloon.
I'll bring up too that this just wasn't like your average schmo platoon that they sent out. Like this was, I mean, this was where they built and tested this thing to begin with. The platoon they sent out were like, oh my God, they did have clearances. Like, just look into Jesse Marcel, and for him to be like holding this thing, whether it was a top secret balloon or not, he would be able to identify pieces.
He was the base security officer. He was the base security officer. He knew a mogul balloon. He claims it was not a mogul balloon.
Aside from that, there's the whole the guy came in and made him pose for the picture with the balloon, and the look on his face is like, this is bullshit. Like, you can see it. It's documented in black and white. It's perfect.
Furthermore, the general in Texas that made Marcel stand in front of the balloon held a card. Modern optical deciphering techniques have totally deciphered what was written on that card, and you can read about it in all of these books. We know what the general had on the card, and it was clear he was instructed to talk about a cover-up, and that the quote, whatever was covered, went to Wright-Patterson. It's on the card that was in his hand. It's not a mogul balloon.
I also like how you can FOIA all like the procedures of like what goes down when there's a cover story being put in place. And, it leaked out to the paper. They were like, oh, we've got a UFO. The paper ran it. They started that news group there started talking about it. And then what swooped in? They came in with the cover story. They reprinted the story. They followed the guideline. Like,
you can FOIA and receive, and others have, the flight patterns, the people who were on the flights. And it's just read these books. Read these books. They're full of this.
Who runs the newsroom, guys? Bruce, who's in charge of a newsroom?
The news guy.
the news guy.
Oh yeah.
So they bullied the news guy. Like people came in and they were like, "No, you gotta go with this story." And he was like, tried to put up a fight, and then they shut him
and
down.
lost.
Yeah.
It's my biggest fear that some reporter somewhere is going to come across something like this and have an argument with the news director or something and say, this is what I saw. I know it's quirky, but you know what? This is real. And he's going to be shut down.
Well, that's already
it's always
happened.
been my fear.
That's already happened many times.
It has. We know there are lots of cases of that, but there's something huge that's going to happen, and somebody's going. Well, and it has happened.
We got some garage in the house.
Hi, Super Ben.
This is one of those moments too where you can almost lead every conspiracy theory back to ufology in some way, shape, or form. And this kind of was like that first, it was after this when you started hearing like the CIA or other acronyms had people in every newsroom and in every.
Nicole, I got to cut you off right there. Thank you to Nicola ×2, Sally, Mennonite Abe, Patrick, Pascal ×2, Tewaz, Bob, Laura, and Michael for the super chats. Here we go with hour 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you all with us. My name is Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Baruvi, I probably butchered that, not saying it again, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio, Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok @Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the SOR Roundtable, an incredible panel tonight. Lou Jimenez from UCR. Joining us late, but still beautiful, is Little Benny Jenkins from UFO Garage, Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, and we have Nicole Sakach, Bruce Claggett, and Science Bob McGwier. And Nicole, I wanted to give you an opportunity to quickly speak about the missing people and what Lou Elizondo had said on UFO Garage earlier this week.
You gave me 45 seconds. I think I can do it. I will say, based on what Lou said, there was a lot of chatter going on talking about, hundreds of thousands of people go missing and, that shooting up globally to millions of people going missing. And those aren't necessarily false statements, but it's also like that clickbait title too, because once you do click and start, digging into these statistics, what you do find is of the hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands are also found for hundreds of thousands of reasons. But this is where it gets a little tricky because like in ufology, we call it like the Heineck 5%, that rule of thumb that we all follow. Out of all the cases that we get, 5% of them, remain unexplained after you look into them. So when you bring up the kid cases in particular, he's not a child, but it really sounds close to Travis Walton and what other experiencers have given testimony about. I know Rick Doty in the last year has started lecturing about a case he investigated while in OSI. And it was about parents and kids out for a drive in the desert. And they get out to have a picnic and their kids get abducted. The parents go to the base, freak out, blah, blah, blah. They find the kids miles and miles and miles and miles away. And then a full investigation goes on, and there's a lot of high strangeness. But I know Paulides hasn't come out with what he thinks, and we're jumping to portals, but there is other high strangeness indicators when he's talking about his cases. And those of us that are trying to bring about like this paranormal world and ufology being the same, like that's what we're looking for, those indicators and those crossovers in cases. So this is exciting that Lou is just tying it in that way. I think it's another little Lou nugget. That was way more than 45 seconds. Sorry.
That's okay. That was quality. Ben Jenkins from UFO Garage, I want to bring you in here because, you guys started asking audience questions. We talked about what Lou Elizondo stated about Roswell and missing people. What caught your attention about all of that?
Yeah, I think thanks for having me on, Dave, by the way. Sorry I'm late. I think it was Enzo that asked about, or it was John Music that asked about the missing people, and that was it kind of threw me for a loop. I was excited to hear if Lou would even answer, and he did. Like, he answered all of the questions from the audience like very well. Like a lot of the times, he maybe responds like, "I'm sorry, at this moment I can't answer that respectfully," but I feel like that was. I think for a lot of people, yeah, man, it was kind of a cool moment, and I don't know, I just didn't know how to take it, but I thought it was really, really, really cool, and he's not saying himself like, hey, I was responsible for this or that. He just says that if you go back and listen, like, I know of some people that had something to do with this, and I know a little bit about this, a little bit about that. So, I mean, he does give some credence to it, or at least acknowledges that he is aware that people go missing all the time, and we don't know how or why it happens. That is really great for me to hear from somebody of his stature. Like, just the acknowledgement, the validation of the question, because a lot of times we get this, like, I can neither confirm or deny it. But it was refreshing having that, like, validation of the question.
I thought so too. All right, let's move on here because we do have other questions to take up here. We're going to get into the Mandela effect here. Now, there's still a lot of different opinions of whether or not it's misremembering or whether there is strange happenings out there. Lou Jimenez, I want to start with you. What's your favorite Mandela effect that you have heard about or you may believe yourself? Lou?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. You were breaking up there a little bit. My bad. My favorite Mandela effect. You said you want. I think you started with me because I was afraid somebody else was going to steal mine. So I appreciate that.
No problem.
It was. So my favorite one is the Berenstain Bears versus the Berenstein Bears.
Yes,
that's the one that absolutely just boggles my flapjack. I remember it as Berenstein Bears, not Berenstain.
I
don't know about you guys.
I remember Berenstein, like the EIN. I remember that, dude.
Yes, that's the way I remember it.
Oh yeah, and that great. This is awesome.
Like, I remember my teacher telling me, like, no, it's like you're saying it wrong, and like it was a very specific thing.
But here's the thing: you go to a library, it says Berenstain.
Yeah, man. What the hell?
How about you, Jessica?
Oh my gosh, I have several. Since we've got a panel, I'm not going to do all of them because everybody's got one. How about life is like a box? Mama always said life is like a box of chocolates.
That's not what he says.
Yeah, but they say now it's Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates or something. It's so different. It's just a little bit different, but just enough to be off. Like, that is not right.
I have two that I'm going to bring up. Number one, I remember Cuba always being this little country on the map, like tiny by Florida. And now you look at Cuba on the map, it looks massive, like a giant island, which it is, a giant island, right? But it always to me seemed like it was very small, like a very tiny island. and it seems to have grown.
Oh,
At least that's the way I remember it. But number two is something that happened to me about 4 or 5 months ago. I was about to interview David Weatherly, and as everybody knows, I call people before the show, and I was looking on his Instagram, and I literally saw this book, Sea Monsters of the Great Lakes. His name was on there. I saw the cover that was done by Sam Sheeran, and I called up David, and I'm like, dude, I want to talk to you about your brand new book that just came out, Sea Monsters on the Great Lakes. And he's like, dude, that's a great topic. He goes, we have a problem. I said, what's that? He goes, I haven't written that book. I'm like, what do you mean? I saw it on your Instagram earlier. He's like, no, man, I've never written that book. It's a good book. I should probably write it. And I go back on his Instagram, and it is gone, man. Don't even see it.
Different timeline, dude.
That was weird, man. That was absolutely
Now, that's
weird.
truly weird.
Dave, you were also talking to me earlier that night, and I said, oh, what are you going to talk about on your show? And you brought that up. You brought up the book, and you were like, I'm going to talk about its new book. And I was like, that's great. And then, yeah, the whole thing went down. It was crazy.
Weirded me out.
You were looking at it. You were looking at it right then when you were telling me that that's what you were going to talk about. So that's my best Mandela moment. Can I butt in here? Because I don't know if you were reading along in your chat, but I don't know what's wrong with me with this effect. It like makes me want to put on my skeptical khaki pants and like just... The best thing for me is when I can prove these things wrong, and I'm like, why do I do this? Like, just let people have their fun. But a lot of it is translation and advertising and spelling things differently. You know, a lot of it is just things being rebooted along the way. There are some tricky ones. You know, a lot of it is we just remember things wrong. What's the one? There's a common phrase, and we don't even know why it became common or when, but it's from like over 100 years ago. But it's like, have your cake and eat it too. We say that all ass backwards, but we just accept it. Like we say it wrong, and that's how everybody says it. You know, there's little nuances like that, but I don't know. The real mandala effect that I like, though, is when you really look at mandala art, and you don't have to understand like the sacred geometry to get like the healing vibration or whatever the message is from it. Like that's the effect I like. I want to stare at some pretty art and have it like give me sacred knowledge from the universe.
You know, Dave, if I can jump in here, it's just amazing. And picking up on what Nicole said, it's not just language. Pop culture is great for the Mandela effect, especially when it comes to like film or even TV or music. The one I like is Timmy Fell Down the Well, and they talk about that one.
Like, you never happened,
Timmy
right?
Never fell down the well. There is not one Lassie episode where Timmy fell down the well. Lassie fell down the well. Timmy did not. You know, but it's just one of those ones that we use all the time.
My favorite pop culture one is Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader has just cut off Luke's hand. What does he say to Luke before he falls? Everybody thinks it's Luke, I am your father. And it is not. It is no,
I am your uncle.
I am your father.
Oh.
So that's my favorite pop culture. But look, we're forgetting who's buried in Grant's tomb. Nelson Mandela was thought by the majority of people in the world to have died in prison, and lo and behold, he was alive. That's where the effect got its name.
Yes. But, I mean, James Earl Jones, Bob, has even come out and said that he thought the line was, Luke, I am your father.
Yep. I'm telling you, it's just amazing. Bob, thank you for pop culture because that brought that to mind. That's one of my favorites. But the other is the Mandela story itself. And these are amazing. How these things happen.
The one that Brian Stavely brought up on this show that really kind of trips me out is, where is your heart? Now, like for instance, us in Canada, when we wear a poppy during Remembrance Day, we put it over our heart, which is on the left. Yet, if you go look at a body now, the heart has moved over to almost near the middle of the chest.
Yes.
Yet, we were all told that the heart is on the left side of the body.
There you go.
Is that a Mandela effect? Is that something that we have misremembered or misquoted? We don't know.
Can I take a stab at that one?
Sure, why not?
We now have better body imaging processes. And a lot of times when people were doing body diagrams, they were doing it of dead bodies, and organs can shift. But yeah, your hand over your heart, I would say, yeah, it's just more correct. We know it's in the center now, but people did say it was off to the left. And your Cuba thing, that is just totally better topography and map making. And no,
way to break my heart. Way to break my heart there.
I'm sorry. I told you, khaki pants are on. Like, blue hats off.
I mean, I'm Cuban. I never really noticed that the island was smaller on maps.
I'm older than you, though.
I'm older. Lots of crazy stuff with maps, though. You know, they'll like make them misrepresented on purpose for like.
Yes, the CIA plot. They wanted you to think Cuba was nothing, so they made it small.
Well, yeah. Since they write all of our textbooks.
Well, I mean, let's ask this because we got a couple more minutes and we could talk about this subject. Do any of you believe that there is something strange going on with the timelines or anything along those lines to be causing so many of these things that we are allegedly misremembering? Because society repeats it over and over and over again. It's easy to write all of this stuff off as us just misremembering the truth from what society believes is the truth.
Go Google, go Google photographic evidence of Mandela effect, and you'll see lots of people finding photographs of things that are really weird. And then you have the multi-thousand-year-old computer that was found in this stuff in the Mediterranean, and how did it get there, and who made it? And then you
that thing stuff with the gears that like
or the electronic circuit that's been in the ground for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, this stuff is just weird. What about
Google. That dude with the ring?
The batteries.
It's like a ring, but it's like a watch. Have y'all seen that?
Oh yeah.
It's like,
yes.
These things are amazing.
I have a Mandela effect right here. I'm going to zoom in for our YouTube audience. One of my listeners, Oscar, sent me this. Thank you. He sent me this a couple of years ago. It's a Ford key. Now, if you bring up the Ford logo has a little curly Q on the left, on the F. If you look at that key, let me see if I can get it zoomed in properly. I don't know because it's kind of worn out.
The missing curly Q is a big one. That's a big Mandela effect.
This key right here does not have the curly Q on the Ford.
Dude, that's awesome. Wow.
Oh, that's amazing. Because, I mean, the curly Q has been on there since day one.
Day one. Ford says it's been there since day one. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, Dave.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Is there something to it? Is it just a bunch of misremembering?
I think
I believe in parallel timelines because I believe in the physicist that came up with the multiverse when he was a graduate student of Wheeler. So I believe it. I believe parallel timelines are possible and likely.
Heartbreaker, Nicole.
I was gonna say what I've been behind the scenes telling you for the last few weeks with what Weinstein said in his latest interview What are we supposed to call it? What are we supposed to call time loops now? He gave them a name, extra temporal dimensions, and he drew his little grid and was like, what's scary is when we realize that we can do this, and drew an arrow back along the time space grid thing. And that automatically made me think of portals and time loops and Rendlesham-Forest binary code locations. And yeah, I don't know. And he also said the scariest thing, if that is the solution, is when we realize that extra temporal dimensions can be hacked. And maybe, we can't do it, but somebody else can.
I don't know. We got 3 minutes to go here. I'm going to start the next topic here because we're going to go into the Bigfoot world here for a quick second.
Oh, shit.
It looks like the Bigfoot Research Organization could be finally bowing down to pressure and changing their thinking ways when reports come in. The BFRO, over a long time here, has received hundreds of complaints from people who have put in their sightings and from their investigators and researchers themselves for them editing reports because they didn't want anything to be woo. They didn't want UFOs. They didn't want paranormal. They didn't want vanishing Bigfoot. They didn't want anything to do with it. And if a report came in, they would either exclude it because it didn't fit their mantra, or they would edit that part out. Jessica, I want to start with you. We got 2.5 minutes here on this because you're our Bigfootologist here today. And I'm curious, what do you think that the BFRO may be changing their tune on how reports are handled?
Yeah, well, I've never been a member of BFRO, and most of the guys on my teams are former BFRO members, and they all were either left or got kicked out. So, because we all are very open about, our research, open-minded, shall I say, and with BFRO, and I have no shade on BFRO. Like, I respect their research, and let me just go ahead and state that, okay? However, being a Bigfoot field researcher, there's just so much more than just Bigfoot out there. So I think that maybe people are abandoning ship when it comes to that organization if they're not taking the other paranormal seriously, like the other events that are going on out in the field. Because if you're doing real research out in that field, you're going to see orbs, you're going to see, UFOs, you're going to see weird stuff that can't be explained, and missing time and all sorts of stuff. I've experienced everything out in the field. So, it has to be that because people are opening up to it now. And they need to, BFRO perhaps should be more open because they're, when you close yourself up in a little tiny box, it doesn't leave for any, I want to say expansion, but, it's just the veil has been lifted at this point. And yes, there's Bigfoots, but if you're out in the field, like I said, you're going to see way more paranormal activity.
All right. We got 45 seconds. Bob.
They've done more damage with that show, Finding Bigfoot, than any good they possibly could have done. That show is awful. They never achieve a thing. It's just a waste.
Yeah, but the problem is it's good for ratings. And TV doesn't care if it's a waste as long as the ratings are good. And if someone farts behind the camera and,
did you hear that?
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? We got squatch farts. Right? No, seriously. But we're going to continue the Bigfoot topic when we return. And Bob, I'm going to get you back in on that as well, as we are joined by Science Bob McGwier, Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress, Lou Angeles from UCR, Little Benny Jenkins from UFO Garage, Bruce Claggett from BFC Communications, and Nicole Sakach. Not only is she a cook, but an author and UFO researcher as well. More Bigfoot talk, and coming up as well, portals. We're going to get into portals I love that topic. Keep it up. We're having a great time on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We'll be back right after this. We're clear. Good show, people.
Hey, I'm going to back out real quick and pop back in because I'm breaking up real bad. So usually it's just
Luke.
like a connection to StreamYard. I'll be
No
right
problem.
back.
No problem. Look at you just dropping bombs there, flying fists there, Jessica Jones.
Well, that's how I roll.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I don't want to get BFRO mad at me though, Dave. Come on.
I don't mind. Let them get mad at me.
What? Are they like the Bigfoot mafia? Like what's going on?
No,
They're like-
it's
they're
just
like-
it's like the mainstream Bigfoot organization kind of like this.
They're like
It's a good
MUFON.
place for people to start. Like if you're going to get into Bigfoot research, it's a great place to start.
They came and did an investigation or held a town hall meeting
Oh,
In
those
my-
are always awful.
in my town.
Yeah, I mean, but at least it's opening the general public up. Like it's a place for people to go to make a report and to file a report. And and I respect their research and stuff. But the reason that a lot of the guys actually dropped out of BFRO that are on my teams is because they didn't want to go take reports all the time. They were being sent out to take reports of other people's experiences, and these guys wanted to go have their own experiences out in the woods.
Right.
And they were all like forward-thinking field researchers that had UFO encounters and things like that, and so it made sense just to form another team.
They're hunters, not investigators.
Yeah.
Or they want to be both, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
Well,
makes
I mean,
sense.
The
it's
most
good-
positive. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Oh, no,
Jessica.
go ahead.
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say it's good to go take reports and stuff, but when you're an active field and researcher, there's an investigator and there's a researcher, right? And these guys were more researchers, like boots on the ground kind of stuff, not just wanting to go, file a report.
I think the most fascinating evidence I saw gathered by BFRO are all of the really, really serious casts of footprints. That stuff is really good, and it's kind of hard to fake. And they had the skeptic biologist there that would stand in the way of them doing anything truly nutty, and that stuff was pretty neat.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Those castings are pretty cool. But with my team out in the field, we started off as a Bigfoot research organization, and it went straight to UFOs and aliens and portals and things like that. So, and even like ghost hunting and stuff. I mean, it's just a big variety. Like we cover everything.
Mm-hmm. Bruce, you having fun?
I'm having a blast. This is absolutely fantastic.
Bruce, you really, next time you're hosting in Vancouver, honestly, you should try and get David Politis on to talk about missing 411. I have his contact information, especially about Vancouver.
It's a good Friday topic too. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, he won't take me on the air to talk UFOs, but that's okay. He's welcome on this show every time he wants to come on. You,
Me?
no, Brucey Bruce up there. Yeah,
I can't believe
you-
some people don't believe you're in radio.
no, it's true. It's true. There are people who believe that out there in the podcast land that I am not on any radio stations, that I put them on my website just to make. Well, Ben puts them on my website.
Fun fact: if you are in the Canadian region, if you walk in between two large trees, you will then receive the Dave Scott Radio channel in voice to skull. Like it's
true.
works.
It's true. It's true.
That's
If
how
I take one
powerful
of my
the
ham
radio signal
radios and
is.
put the antenna in my ear,
Yeah.
I get you, Dave.
True story about Bruce Claggett. I was his best man at his wedding, and for his stag, I take him out for me and my buddy Kirk take him out for a steak dinner at a restaurant. Then afterwards, we go to the Loose Moose for a few drinks, and then we head over to the Roxy. We cordoned off an area in the back area of the Roxy, and literally we had Bruce surrounded by women who all believed that he was on his stag night and had left the monastery as a priest to marry his bride. And literally
awesome.
there was about 30 women there, all like, really? You left the monastery for a woman? That is so romantic.
That
And
is both my best and worst line I've ever used in my life in a bar, and it was on my stag night. And
was
I've
working.
never seen such a good, well played out line the whole evening.
Hold on. Here we go, everyone. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning us all on in. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on here tonight with the Roundtable. We got an incredible panel for you tonight from Vancouver, BFC Communications, Bruce Claggett. Nicole Sakach is here from UFO Garage. We got little Benny Jenkins from KGRA's Into the Portal, Jessica Jones, Science Bob McGwier, and the man, the myth, and the legend all wrapped into one. Super Lou Jimenez from UCR. I love that show. You know, Lou, I will tell you this. Your show is one of the only ones, yours and Ben's are one of the only shows out there on YouTube where I actually ring the bell, man. I ring the bell to know when you guys are coming on. And I have a couple of you. I now have a couple of YouTube channels, and I've subscribed to you on both of you. That's the kind of guy I am. Get that number up.
You're sweet.
Yeah,
man.
I'll take the paycheck later, okay? 'Cause I got pay as well. Now we're continuing on here with the BFRO here, and Lou, we'll stick with you on this one for a little bit here because I know you don't do a lot of Bigfoot stuff. You're more UFO related and esoteric and suave, teaching people how to date and everything like that, especially with your buddy Rather Be Squidding there, and his fantastic hairdo. I know I'm teasing, and I love Rather, but with the BFRO potentially changing to allow the stories to be in full. They're not editing them. They're going, we're hoping this passes because we need truth. We don't need editing. We don't need opinion in any of this. We talked a little bit earlier about opinion as well. Where do you stand on that? When it comes to almost changing evidence to suit your necessity.
Happens a lot in this field. In the UFO field, I'm sure it's rampant in the Bigfoot world as well. I mean, look, more clarity is always better, and if more clarity means don't if more clarity means don't edit, that is one of the hands down funniest comment I've seen maybe this whole year. If you don't edit the information, I think that's just that it's more clarity. It adds more validity to the data. So I try, with anything, with UFOs, with Bigfoot, with ghosts, with paranormal, with the Mandela effect, I try not to believe anything. I don't want to believe anything. I mean, as compelling as some of these things are, they haven't been compelling enough to change the paradigm. And so that's where I always come back to. And it's frustrating because I feel like if you really look, like Bob says, if you read the books, damn it, and you do the work, you'll see that there is a lot of great information and data there that definitely gives you a totality of things that's going on. But it still doesn't give you, hey, here it is. Here's what's happening. And so, that's just my best advice when it comes to any of this, is try not to fall into a belief system, and then you won't get jarred if you're wrong. It won't be something that destroys your life. That's the best piece of advice as I could give, is just manage your expectations, and don't believe anything, question everything, and even your own sightings, and that's something I struggle with all the time, seeing a UFO 100 feet away from you, 200 feet away from you. It's a paradigm shift for if you're seeing it. But I try not to put my experience as proof on the table for somebody listening to the story, or somebody that I'm trying to convince. And I also hope to have that reciprocated back to me. Like, your experience shouldn't be proof for me, or I shouldn't be obligated to take that as proof, if that makes sense.
No, I fully agree with you. Ben, let's get your opinion.
I love that yin and yang, dude. Like if a lot of people have these experiences, and when you do, you feel very, very strongly about it. And you want to express to somebody who doesn't know about that experience yet how you feel. And it can come off very emotional. And for somebody who's very nuts and bolts, needs facts and truths and things like that, it's really tough. So to have that understanding, like, hey, if we're going to have a conversation about this, if you give me respect, I will give you the same respect, and vice versa. Like, that's how we have this conversation. And I really respect that, man. Like, I think there's like this duality, and we need that. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There has to be this duality where, like, somebody has an experience. I've had an experience with a very close friend of mine years later, says he's flipped his understanding of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it. I totally opened the floor, like for the understanding, like, yeah, you've changed your mind about it. I haven't. And that's okay. And we can still talk about it. I guess what we're talking about is this yin and yang, this conversation. That's what it's all about. And what is truth? I mean, we talked about this very recently. Like, there's a personal truth and there's what happened. And what happened doesn't necessarily mean that it has to fit on both sides. There's so much gray area, but I guess
that's very true. Yeah. But you know what? Science Bob taught me something a long time ago. And that was, there's a big difference between conducting science and hiding behind those words and conducting opinion. And Bob, I want you to kind of step in on that, because, when you have reports that are being edited to suit a dialogue, that doesn't suit anybody. That's nothing scientific there.
No, look, I have a doctorate in applied mathematics, and I do statistics all the time. Okay, so I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I'm about to make a point. If people who are uninvolved are editing reports, there is no valid statistical analysis that can be done on this data and reports in order to try to find common elements that lead to actual science being done. You cannot edit these reports. You invalidate every aspect of it. The report is now useless because it's been edited. You want it untouched so statistical analysis can be done to find common elements. So, and about belief, I don't want anybody to believe anything about the experiences I've had. I've had 3 orbs flying at a triangle in my front yard. Sharon and I are sitting watching television, and this unbelievably white, hot, bright orb appears between us. And if I had a camera, I wish you could have seen the look on my wife's face. Okay. Then I have blinking things fly under the trees in my backyard. And every bit of this since I went and visited Chris Bledsoe. But what my personal experiences are is irrelevant. Don't believe in all that stuff because I had an experience. Let's take all of this data, collate it all together and see what we can objectively find out about all of these experiences. Don't believe me. And Lou is just right on the money. Belief is not going to help us. What's going to help us is take the stories. Don't say it's false. Take what you can find common elements, try to get somewhere. That is moving this forward.
Absolutely. I don't think either of you could have said it any better. Bruce Claggett, I want to bring you in here on this one, and then we'll get to Nicole. But, we're seeing a lot of editing happening, not only in opinion with science, but we're seeing it in the way people write about things and editing, video, short pieces. We're seeing it all over journalism as well, which is dangerous precedent if you're conducting science on an opinion and if you're editing reports and leaving out facts from what is going on. I mean, explain that if that's a benefit or not.
Well, it's a battle of my career, both as a journalist and as a media relations professional. The thing is to understand the medium you're trying to use or trying to reach or trying to get your story heard in. Editing is a fact of life. The problem comes in when you lose the context of a story and you lose all the facts and you lose all the research because you're fitting it into a medium where it may not work. I used to say this all the time in a newsroom. I get people phoning in and complaining, and I worked for 18 years in a 24-hour round-the-clock newsroom as a senior managing editor. And people would phone in and they'd say, you know what, you missed the point of the story. And I'd say, oh, okay. And it could be any story. It was replicated many times across many different subjects. I'd say, okay, what do you mean? Well, there's so much more you could have said. And there's so much more that could have backed up the story. But all I heard was, and I've had to stop and explain this. I said, you realize in my medium that I'm dealing with here, and there are lots of media out there, but I'm dealing with 30 seconds. 30 seconds of telling a top story from 1,000 feet looking down. Take that story, the headline you hear, and again, we've talked about this on this show. Go back, do your research. Start to look into the facts. If you're interested in this, find out more, because all we're doing here is touching the very surface of it. Where the problems come in is when people start to, and even reporters working in different media, start to think that they have a certain level of understanding and complexity that they don't have. They've got to realize themselves, you know what? You're dealing in a top level in production of a subject. And that's where I come from.
I just think it's dangerous, Nicole, when you are editing pieces to suit your own narrative. We see it a lot in the UFO world. We see it in the Bigfoot world. And I don't think we should be shoehorning, pardon me, not shoehorning. Where did that come from? Shoehorning.
What does that mean?
I don't even know. Yeah. I'm good for one a night. Shoehorning any type of story into what fits our narrative rather than letting the facts speak for themselves. Whether a Bigfoot report has a ghost in it, has Bigfoot disappearing, has, footprints that just end with no other prints showing an exit route, UFOs involved, aliens involved. I mean, it's amazing how many reports, Nicole, out there that people have a Sasquatch encounter and immediately have a UFO encounter. I had one last year that I researched in my area where a guy was coming down a logging road about an hour and a half from me, had a Sasquatch walk right across the road from him. He got scared, sped out of the area, and not even 10 minutes later, something catches his eye in his windshield. He looks up and there's a black triangle. I mean, that's like hitting the lottery. It's hitting the lottery.
The further I got into ufology, the less I could avoid Bigfoot. He just started showing up everywhere for me, like in the honestly. And it seemed for me, it was orb related. And even to this day, like I like talking about the work being done down in Missouri. It's like ongoing orb work, and they're seeing this. It's like, juvenile Bigfoot along the rivers while they're going to film orbs. And yeah, it's just inescapable. But as far as editing case reports and creating a narrative, and I think the excuse has been given, and it's to sort of gain credibility, and ufology kind of has this built-in high strangeness. And I think the people who research Bigfoot aren't necessarily wanting that. And so because there's a lack or a big hole in this, and citizen researchers are filling in these gaps, not a scientific community or a national group of some sort. I think that's the pitfall, but it's also the strength. We're shining the light on this topic so others can join in the fight. But this does remind me of like early MUFON that just wanted to stick to this is nuts and bolts. This is something physical, and they would leave out like the consciousness aspects and high strangeness. And then it slowly mutated to where MUFON, adopted the ERT, and they work with experiencers, and they deal with the high strangeness. So this might be the Bigfoot research world like moment in time where it's like they step up and start accepting these things as part of it instead of trying to fight the tide.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me too with the Bigfoot research field is that, it's hard for people to wrap their heads around that there's a big, gigantic, hairy man beast in the woods, but, with the Bigfoot field research where there's, okay, so they're out there examining Bigfoot in the woods, and like we've accepted the fact there's a Bigfoot, but now let's take it a step further and try to figure out, like, where are these things going? Are they interdimensional? Do they cloak? There's this X factor to Bigfoot, right? And I think that's where BFRO was not comfortable going, was the X factor. And there is absolutely a gigantic X factor. It's like the elephant in the room. And so, it's important that, if you're going to be out researching Bigfoot, you have to explore those things. You have to explore this because these things just disappear out of thin air, seemingly, So
I will never forget when I had one of the members, Cliff Barrickman, on this show, and I asked him point blank, explain to me the footprints that just stop. And his answer to that was, we believe that Sasquatch backs itself out into its own prints. And I said, well, would that not leave a double print? And he goes, not necessarily. And
that's weird.
I was stunned. Do you know how hard that would be to hit every thermal ridge that you possibly could in order to make every print look the same? Bob, I mean, statistically speaking, what would be the mathematical average of walking backwards and nailing your shoe print each time?
Well, I don't know the actual probability distribution of statistics. However, remember how deep the impression Sasquatch footprints make. I can tell you, I believe it's nigh on to impossible, given the heaviness of these footprints, for them to walk backwards exactly, unless they are a finely controlled machine and have nanometer capable control of their footprints, because they just can't do it. I just don't think it can be done easily if it's a living being. So I just think the probability is like nearly zero that it could be done easily.
I'm picturing a ballerina kind of Sasquatch doing it backwards.
There
And it's
you
a very
go.
beautiful picture in my mind.
Pirouette.
How often do you see any animal? I mean, yeah, if they're stuck in something, they'll walk backwards. But I mean, how often do you see any animal in nature walking backward?
I mean, humans don't even walk backwards that often like that.
Or I don't know. Why wouldn't they just like moonwalk and like erase their own tracks? Like
it takes years to teach a really good quarter horse to go backwards just like you want. I mean, just forget about it.
And the thing is, when you watch tracks in the snow, like say for instance, if you watch deer in the snow, when deer walk in the snow, they actually kick up snow to extend their track. So their track may only be 3-4 inches long, if that. But when they kick up the snow behind them, that track becomes 10 to 12 inches long. Okay, so you think if Sasquatch was walking backwards to step back into its own prints, there would be snow coming back because as it's lifting up its foot, it would kick the snow behind it. It would. And then to make an exact step right into where it stepped before, including all of the dermal ridges that are on the foot, it's impossible. We can't do that as humans.
Now, Dave, I actually, being a Bigfoot field researcher, I've had to take tracking courses. And I just don't think that that's possible, walking backwards like that. Just from a tracker's point of view.
Can you even take the same gait backward as you can forward?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I believe if the physiology of what is purported to be a Bigfoot were taken into account, they can't get the weight distribution right going backwards that made the footprint going forward. It's just not possible.
What about the cases, like you said, where the tracks disappear? But what about the cases where it's like foot, then like paw print, deer hoof, where it's like it disappears into like another trail?
Well, then we're talking skinwalkers.
Very true.
I had a question for Jessica. How do you research something that disappears? How do you collect data on something like that? Just out of curiosity.
Well, what do you mean by that? Like, how do we? Well, see, I'm actually trained in remote viewing. I do remote viewing.
Okay.
My entire team is trained in remote viewing.
No, I guess what I meant is when we were talking about the BFRO.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And how they wouldn't go into the aspect of, like you were saying with thermal imaging and portals and cubes in the field that move. Like, how do you gather data on that? What's the best way to do it? How would you encourage the BFRO to look into things like that?
Well, first of all, they got to get out there and just do it. I mean, I don't know. I've never been a member of BFRO. Now, I do know people that go and take groups out for BFRO and take them on expeditions, like a weekend expedition. And they do all the same things that my team does. They do all the same stuff. Now, are they just not, I don't know if they're just not experiencing these things out there, because I've never gone out with BFRO before. So I don't know. I have no idea. I can only tell you what my team does. And, and it involves a lot of time in the woods. You got to go out there and you got to take your equipment. I don't personally take a whole lot of equipment. But, a lot of the guys on my team do. And, just spend a lot of time out there, and weird stuff's going to show up, and you just got to be there to catch it.
So when weird stuff shows up, like your portal, and you see it there, that it has an impact, it has a physical presence, you can detect it with a FLIR camera. I would want to know if there's any evidence of other kind of emanations before and after and during. So I would go out and see if there was some trace evidence left by where the portal was that's detectable. So, but I don't know what you guys do, but if I were to jump in on one of your deals and we saw a portal, I would hope I'd have equipment that would let me measure that kind of stuff, because that's evidence.
Yeah, and we actually, they had all the equipment out there, and they had their Geiger counters and all that stuff, and there was a big spike in radiation and all that. So it's all documented, and hopefully the it'll be getting out there where the public can see it here in the near future.
Yeah, I'm expecting I'm expecting.
Right there. I got to let you guys hold on right there because we do got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We continue with the SOR Roundtable and our great panel. When we return, aliens. Are they among us? Oh yeah, we're gonna get it. Hey guys, let's get into Shelly's question right now. So when you try to look into your own experiences and research, try figure stuff out, and you put it out there, knowing you're making an ass out of yourself, you just let it go or you stick with it. Nicole, this is totally your question.
You have to put yourself out there. That's what I decided. When I decided I was going full blown woo and I was going to research it all, it was like, yep, it's all hanging out. And I also knew I was going to have to eat a lot of crow sandwiches, just based on shifting my perspective, And so, yeah, crow sandwiches are tasty. And then what was also surprising is that once I opened up to the side of things, it was almost, I don't want to say dangerous in a bad way, but it's I had to be very cautious. And Bob, it's your hitchhiker effect. And that's such a hot topic with Skinwalker Ranch, this evil hitchhiker effect. It's not necessarily a hitchhiking effect, but when you open yourself up and you surround yourself with other experiencers and you do this, it's you have to be careful what you ask for. I noticed the things I was still a little jaded about, researching, I'll never forget. It was right when I first started working with Grant. I didn't do the series of interviews with him, but I was paying attention to him. And they were all about apports. And they were telling these stories. And one was about this. They all had a synchronicity. And the apport was feathers. And I'm like, oh, come on. Feathers can happen anywhere. Feathers, feathers, feathers. And, or, people were receiving marbles or some apports. I ended up getting rocks. But, it was just... the snide way I was thinking about this, total khaki pants. And then it was the next day I'm in my restaurant and there's bird feathers. And I'm oh, they blew in the back door, pigeons in the dumpster, whatever. And then I reach in my chef coat pockets and I'm fumbling for a marker and I pull out a feather. Wow. And I'm okay, quit messing with me, phenomenon. But I've noticed things like that continuously do happen. A lot of times it's just, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill synchronicities, but I have noticed the things that I still have a chip on my shoulder about seem to give me a big woo slap. So it's
when I had the apports of water, I mean, whatever the phenomenon was doing, and we know what eventually it was doing. Right. About the fifth time I got squirted, and Sharon also got squirted simultaneously, and out of the middle of the air in the middle of rooms. Right. We finally decided, this might be something worth looking into. So, I mean, look, I'm telling you, just my personal experience with the phenomenon. If it wants your attention, it's going to be persistent until you wake up. And finally, we woke up.
And it's that little trickster sense of humor. You see it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. You think the feathers is stupid? Well, here's your own feathers. Neener, neener, that kind of thing. And it was weird things too. Bob leading up to the pile of rocks from my second sighting.
Yeah.
That whole 3 weeks before, when I was having those crazy experiencer symptoms of something's going to happen, and I would be at work and I kept hearing tink. I'd hear tink in the metal sink, and I'd go over there and there'd be a little rock like in the sink. And I'm like, where are these rocks coming from? So it's like this build up to that whole scenario. So I don't know.
Until it happens, until you can no longer deny it. Once you
Right.
accept it, in our case, it stopped. All it wanted was acceptance. That's my opinion and what I believe. That's not scientific evidence, but I'm telling you what my opinion is and what I believe, because it continued until it stopped. Then I did what it wanted by calling somebody and saying I would do something, and then we experienced the miracle.
Right. So amazing.
People probably don't know the miracle. My wife had a stroke, and it had some debilitating things. And as soon as we got squirted, accepted all this stuff, she was healed in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And her neurologist released her because he couldn't find the lesion.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm just telling
It's a
you,
real
I
miracle.
believe this is a miracle. I had it in the presence and being involved with Chris Bledsoe like many other people do. And just understand that as a scientist, I divorce myself from belief. I want to look at evidence that I can apply statistics or analysis to. So I constantly have to be really careful about wearing two different hats. One is an experiencer, the other is a scientist, and I have to keep them a wall between them.
Hold on, guys. I just want to say a big thank you to Nicola ×2, Sally, Abe, Patrick, and Pascal ×2, Tewaz, Dry Toast, Michael ×2, Bob and Laura for the amazing super chats, as it is absolutely fantastic the way you support this show. Thank you to all the veterans tuning in. We absolutely love you. Here we go with hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Well, reading it looks like tractor to me. Tractor is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We had to say goodnight to Ben Jenkins from UFO Garage. He's got a brand new newborn at home, not feeling very well, so he had to go play daddy, which is a little bit more important than what we're doing here tonight. So we'll forgive Ben for disappearing, and that is a beautiful excuse. That is for sure. I think for all of us who are parents, we can understand that. But we're going to continue on with aliens. Now, over the last number of months, extraterrestrials and aliens has really started to come up. It started a few months ago when one of the Pentagon speakers started talking about extraterrestrials could be out there. Then we heard NASA head Bill Nelson talk about extraterrestrials potentially being here. And more recently, we have heard Hal Puthoff, Chris Mellon, John Ramirez talk about hybrids, and Jim Semivan talking about his ET experiences. Now, from what I was told by insiders, this comes in 3 phases. Phase 1 started with the To the Stars Academy, where it was confirmation that this phenomena is out there. It could be Russian, it could be Chinese, it could be an adversary, but we weren't sure. Then phase 2 started about a year ago, where it was no longer an adversary, but we don't know what it is, we don't know where it's coming from, and we need to investigate it. Bob, is phase 3 underway, where all of a sudden we're starting to see the leaks of people talking, high-profile people in this field talking about aliens.
I believe it with all my heart. So look, they got what they wanted. They got the National Defense Authorization Act. They've got Congress looking into things. And after that, they were freed to start telling us. I mean, Jim Simivan was in he's a senior member of the clandestine service as a CIA officer. And now he's telling us that all sorts of people inside the CIA talked to him about his experiences, and he informed them, and that he had ET walking around his bedroom with his wife. I mean, come on. And then Chris Mellon goes on and says, I don't know this, but to me, it's ET, and that's just my opinion. Okay, I mean, something changed, and I think the thing that changed is they didn't scare anybody off by telling this stuff until the National Defense Authorization Act was done and signed.
Lou Jimenez, let's get your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Jazz Shaw on our show, I think it was in November or October, was telling us, you just get ready for people in high places to start using the word extraterrestrial or extraterrestrially in reference to this topic. And that's exactly what's happened. I don't think anyone has come out and said, basically said what Bob reiterated what Bob was saying, in that they're putting the possibility on the table. Like, that hypothesis is being discussed in high-level classified briefings. It's being legitimately put on the table as a possibility of what this might be. That doesn't mean that's what it is, but it's just one of the things that they're discussing beyond Russian, beyond Chinese. And so getting that, it is interesting that the word is being brought up in conversation, and it's not being solicited. It's being just said. So it's cool. I think it's cool.
They're seeing the good videos and the other good data that's classified that we're not allowed to see.
Nicole Sakach, let's get your opinion.
Well, I agree with everything that these gentlemen just said. And I will also point out there's also like this creeping, lingo of this is something that quite possibly has been around for thousands of years or alongside of humanity the entire time of its existence. And there's, talk of ultra terrestrial as well, I guess is the way to put it. That this isn't just maybe little green men from out there coming here, that this is something, crossing dimensions or playing with that, what I call like the wacko continuum, that space-time continuum. And if you think time is a constant or, but this is also bringing the idea like that was blowing Mr. Weinstein's mind. This is the possibility of future humans. Are they going to look like us? When people theorize, they look like these little gray guys with the big eyes and heads. So we've also heard that once the truth embargo on disclosure is lifted, then we'll get to this kind of talk and more experiencer talk. So I think we are seeing these three, and they're going to, run with this ball while they have the moment. The moment is theirs. They're going to keep pushing. They're not going to let this, slack like the missing children's cases. They don't want it to be in that 2-week news cycle and then dead forever. So they're going to keep pushing it, and I'll keep applauding them.
All right, Jessica, I want to talk to you about this. When all of a sudden we start hearing high-profile former CIA agents, maybe they're still currently involved or contracted out, starting to bring extraterrestrials and aliens into the conversation here. Where do you think this puts us in the realm of disclosure or confirmation?
Well, I mean, I think we're closer to disclosure. I mean, I know aliens are real. I think a lot of people that I know aliens are real. I think that they've been giving us disclosure for a long time. But yeah, as far as like the big reveal, I mean, they're doing it now. They've been doing it. So I don't know. I mean, I think that when people high up are getting closer to it, I think that, I of course I've heard that they're going to do an alien invasion this year, like a false flag kind of thing, so I don't know, buckle your seatbelts.
Well, I mean, everybody's invading everybody these days, so why not?
Why not? Can I put my woo hat on for a second? And I got a channel Grant for at least like a moment, because I hear his voice in my head saying, well, what about all the experiencers that, talk to their beings and they get asked, like, what are you? Are you an ET? And you get these real evasive answers like, I'm not really what you think I am, or no, that's not quite it, or yeah, sure, I'm from Alpha Centauri, or sure, I used to be from Venus, or the ones that change on you. They start off as one and then they, keep coming back and your visits change. And, that doesn't necessarily sound like visitors from out there driving their ship here to me. That sounds like something completely that we can't define, honestly. That's when it encroaches into spirituality and mythos and, I love it.
Bruce, I want to bring you in on the conversation here because from a journalism perspective, all right, this entire story, especially here in Canada, has not been covered to barely any extent. And we could take this conversation in a completely different direction as to why that has happened. But the idea that we have high-profile members of the UFO community who have sat in on some major meetings, have high-profile, top-secret clearance, NDAs up the wazoo that will never be broken, but all of a sudden they are starting to talk extraterrestrials. How much is the media missing with this conversation that's going on right in front of them, but they choose to ignore?
Well, the conversation's about to get a lot more interesting, and I'll tell you why. But first, let's not look into the past, but let's look into the future. And going forward this year, the news cycle is going to concentrate a lot on military. And especially right now, you're talking about Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. You can't fall back on the simple explanations or even hint at the fact that we may be looking into something that is a military explanation from a foreign power. That may have been an easy answer in the past. You do that now and you get people super concerned. And right now is not the time to do that. So now you have to kind of pull back the curtain and actually start to talk about what is real and what is possibly being a private conversation, and say, are we going to talk about it? Are we going to use words that are uncomfortable words? Or are we going to hide and not say anything? And if we're going to take the position that we're going to come out and talk about what we know, we're not going to link it to possible military explanations. That's not going to work. It may have worked in 2021. In 2022, this ain't the year for it. So that means that they're going to have to be a lot more candid. For reporters, that means they're going to hear new words that they haven't heard before if it is talked about at all. And the words, hinting very closely at little green men or other life forms or anything like that, they're going to come out in the forefront, or else it's going to be nothing whatsoever. That's my prediction.
Bruce, I want to follow up that question because I do know that there are talks in Ottawa that have been going on prior to what happened in Ottawa with the truckers convoy, and then what's happening in the Ukraine right now, that there has been talks in Ottawa about the UFO subject and Canada's role in NORAD when it comes to UFOs. Yet when our reporters here have covered this subject, it hasn't been from a Canadian angle. Why would that be? Why would we cover it from an American angle, but not a Canadian angle?
Simple and easy. That's why. There are Canadian angles, but it takes resources and it takes a lot of digging. It's much the same way that the Canadian media often looks to American research or American examples or American media to back up or even validate Canadian stories. It's easy. And I don't mean to blame journalists for that. It's not the journalist's fault. It's the way the media is structured. You don't have time to actually dig and do the proper research and the proper context and circle it right back to your own country and say, hey, what's happening right here and what questions have been going on right in Ottawa? It's easier to say what's happening in DC.
That's lazy.
It's lazy, but it's also the structure of the media right now. Hey, look, you've had a few years of downsizing in the mainstream media. You've had multiple reporters laid off, and you've had a loss of trust in the mainstream media. Some of that, and my media friends are going to be a little bit upset with me, but some of that is deserved, that loss of trust in the media. But it's not for any reason that is, calculated or anything on the part of the media. It's just that when you start cutting and you start to have more demands on the media, you're going to have less investigation, less getting out of the safe zone, and less being open to other ideas. And that's what we're seeing. We're certainly seeing it in the United States, but we're also seeing it in Canada.
Well, I think that's pretty much hits a nail on the head for it. But Bob, I want to go back to you here for a moment here, because as we get into more extraterrestrial talk and the fact that this is now going to impact, are we all of a sudden going to see an influx in people talking about experiencers? Because when Mellon, Hal Puthoff, even Lou Elizondo, and Jim Semivan are talking aliens, all right, that leads down a different path that we're not used to. All right. And I can tell you from private talks I've had with people, I'm surprised it's come out this quickly. I expected that conversation within another 5 to 10 years, not in 2022.
I just keep having this feeling. Again, this is me. Nobody's told me anything because I'm on the outside looking in, not on the inside anymore. I keep having this feeling that they know something is about to happen and we don't know what it is, and they're attempting to prepare us for that which is about to happen. That's what this feels like. And this is the kind of influence operation that would be conducted at some kind of official level to prepare people for whatever is coming, so the entire world economy and all civilization doesn't collapse whenever it happens. That's what this feels like. So that's what I keep focusing on and looking for.
Who else wants to jump in on that?
I'll play off of that a little bit, Bob, and even venture to say, though, and give our community a little bit of props here. Like, I think Ross Coulter said it best. Like, we're seeing like the real journalism in our community right now coming out of, podcasters and citizen journalists and, researchers like you and I. And, in a way, I see it as those that have been looking into this for a long time. You kind of come up with that master list, and we all know like Hal Puthoff's a number 13 on it because of all the groups he's been involved. But when you start putting these people on lists and their years of interest in this, that's when it starts hitting home. It's like they're in it so diligently because they're curious just like we are. And why are you curious? Because you've had your own experience with it. So once you level that playing field and realize that this list is chock full of experiencers of high strangeness, and you realize the diligence being done by the researchers in our field and all the public platforms they now have, they're getting out ahead of this so they can control their own narrative before somebody else does it for them. Like,
Oh yeah.
big time. Like,
Is
from
there a
mouth cut
narrative?
off all the way down. Like,
Well,
it's
I think there's definitely there's got to be some kind of pressure building up from a scientific perspective, especially with groups like Galileo and UAPX and a whole bunch of other Skywatch organizations that are filled with scientists and skeptics and all sorts of people putting in their 2 cents. But if, let's say, Avi Loeb gets a wonderful picture from a couple different angles of one of these craft zipping through our atmosphere, he beats the United States government, the most powerful data collection apparatus the humans have ever known. I think that's super embarrassing, and I don't know how much the government can control scientists and professors and academia from starting to really look at this data, writing papers about it, releasing their conclusions to these papers. And I'm sure more papers will be written, because I'm sure there's going to be conclusions that are debated for a while. But I mean, science is starting to finally take a crack at this question in a very serious way. And I think that might be putting pressure on it from a political perspective. Like, hey, we better start, because it's a win-win for the government if they're more honest about this. Like, if they want to build, and just going back to what Bruce said, there's no trust in government. There's no trust in the media. It's at an all-time low. And if you want to build some brownie points with the American people, or whatever government is the first to the table on this disclosure discussion, oh my goodness, like, you're gonna win a lot of operating room from citizens, and saying, oh my gosh, they're being honest about UFOs and there's something to it. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay. Yeah, you'll probably get some more budgets approved. Who knows all the goodwill that the government buys in doing that.
Bruce Claggett, we got 2 minutes left before we got to go to our final break of the night. Is the media properly prepared and ready to ask the questions that need to be asked about UFOs and aliens being here on this planet?
No.
Why?
No, here's the truth. The media is not ready. Media is not used to asking certain questions or going into certain territories. Very boxed in, and some of that is just a structure of how things are set up. Where you're going to find some, where the message is going to come out, and it will come out, is it's going to be on the tier 2 media. Ones that have enough credibility, but ones that have freelancers that want to do the research and bring things a little bit forward. And somebody in the mainstream media, the tier 1, is going to take a look at those stories and see that and start asking questions and pick it up from there. So it is going to come out, but don't expect the mainstream media to zero in right away. They don't have the focus on it right now, and they certainly are not going to get the buy-in from editors at this point.
Why is that? We got 1 minute.
Why is that? The news cycle is such that there isn't much room for a lot of different topics, and even very important topics that are out there. Of course,
that's because the Kardashians are more important.
Well, and something that is generally accepted as being very important because it's safe is going to be making it to the forefront. Something that's dangerous and way out there and scary and something we don't know and has been relegated to the fringes is not going to be something where a reporter or a newsroom is going to want to venture in. But again, I say it will come out. It'll come out in the tier 2, more like the freelancers that do things for secondary news sites that have some credibility, and it'll be picked up. Somebody's going to discover a lot, back it up, have it well researched, and ask really good questions. And when this does come out, it is going to be picked up by the mainstream off the back of others.
All right. Bruce Claggett, Nicole Sakach, Science Bob, Super Lou, and the Cryptid Huntress will return for the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. We're getting into portals next, my favorite subject. We will be back on Spaced Out Radio in just a couple of minutes.
Hey Bruce, I got a question for you out of curiosity. Do you think that, because I agree with you that these newsrooms and these news entities are really not, they don't have the UFO research team in the newsroom. And so when the information, I think, starts coming at a quicker pace, they're going to be really caught off guard and not know how to cover it. And they'll try to do it in a 5-minute thing. And I think people will be so curious and so hungry for more that they'll go to tier 2, and tier 2 won't really be quick enough. Whereas tier 3, like shows like this, shows like mine, whatever show that it runs on an independent sort of format, I think are going to be the ones that really reap the benefits of this discussion, because they've been talking about it for years now.
And it may even be your tier 3 and tier 2. It'll work its way up through the tiers. I just don't think that the mainstream media, and I mean, there's a lot of good journalism in mainstream media in tier 1, but it's not focused here. It's not focused on something that is really uncomfortable and something that's scary or something that's new or something that's huge. And it's not prepared for that. So I think it's not going to react. If there is something that is so big scale, obvious that happens, they're going to turn to authorities for answers, and authorities are not going to have any answers. That's how mainstream operates.
But they know that they have a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who has the most read story on the front page of the New York Times ever, and they know they have multiple people like that. You got Politico with Brian, who's also there. There are mainstream media people who can help, but I'm hopeful that these mainstream media people get to interview the subject matter experts. I can just tell you, and I'm not going to tell you all the details, just say the Experiencer Group is a place where you can find Ralph Blumenthal and others. And I can tell you they are completely aware of kind of all that's going on with experiencers. And they're not in denial. They are being controlled by editors.
Yeah, and I don't think it's editors. The editors are ultimately controlled by their bosses.
Yeah.
And,
especially corporate media.
Yeah. And, I've played the role of an editor. And basically it's time constraints, money constraints first. It's not editorial constraints. Anyone that ever told me, hey, you have to back off on a story, if they ever tried that in my 30 years, they would be hit with a barrage of F words. And, it just doesn't happen. That's something you pride yourself on, which is not to say that editors don't shut things down. I've probably shut things down in my career. But you shut it down for money reasons. And on balance, I can get this story over here. It's easy. It's important. This story is going to take a lot more research, and I'm going to spend all day trying to convince others that it's worthy. I'm not going to go there. I just can't. And that's unfortunate, but it's true.
Lou, you should do a panel of high quality journalists like Bruce and a few others to bring on your show. I think it would be very educational.
I'd love to go on Lou's show.
Yeah, I mean, I love Daniel Otis. He's a Canadian journalist. He does a lot of wonderful work on the UAP topic. And yeah, I mean, Ross Cole thought, yeah, that would maybe we could put a panel together for the big
that
phone
would
home.
be awesome. I mean,
Yep.
Ross is my my big hero in journalism right now. But look, I get to interact with Ross every day, so he's just got to be my hero. Yeah, Dave and I get to interact with Ross every day.
Yeah, he's
Ross,
good.
Billy,
The
Bryce,
funny thing for me is I'm playing both worlds right now. I'm still
Steven,
half in journalism and half in media relations.
Leslie.
Making most of my money off the media relations and how to penetrate into the newsrooms. But you can see it from both sides. The interesting thing, though, is in media relations, I often say there's no media to relate to anymore. That's my biggest concern because things are so tight with those resources, and that's the biggest problem. It's not anyone actually using purposeful shutters. I wish. I mean, it's not happening.
Do you think those relationships will grow, like, as we discover, like, more and more journalists are talking with, like Dave said, experiencers, and like
I think so.
them or sort of educating them?
I got to cut the conversation. We're back on in 5 seconds here, guys. Hold on. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, as well as TikTok. Yep, we're on TikTok too. All right, final time tonight. We bring in the panel for the SOR Roundtable. We are joined by Lou Jimenez from Unidentified Celebrity Review. We have Jessica Jones from Into the Portal on KGRA. Cook, Nicole Sakach. Yeah, she's a researcher and author in UFOs too, but she likes to be known as a cook. From BFC Communications in Vancouver, Bruce Claggett, and of course, Science Bob. And we're going to get into the portal theory here. All right, we're starting to hear more and more about portals. And maybe it has ties to missing people. Maybe it has ties to where UFOs are coming from, different dimensions, alternative realities. I mean, this opens up, Nicole, a plethora of options as to where we're going and where research could be going very, very soon. I see the smile on your face. I know you're pretty excited about this one.
You said plethora, and anytime we talk portals, inevitably, somehow, I start talking about how crafts pop in and out. And there's been significant research, from people like Kit Green, probing questions about how these crafts do that. And so he'll speak with experiencers about that. But then my other favorite thing to talk about is if we have this technology or if we've dabbled in this technology. And that always brings me back to this Obama era news blib that we've heard about, and that's the jump room. Do we have this jump room sort of pop in, pop out technology? Or is this some version of extratemporal dimensions? Are there multiple versions of me having this conversation right now? And we can blur the lines or hack those dimensions.
A plethora of Nicoles, maybe?
A plethora of Nicoles. Exactly. That's 2 plethoras for the night. 3.
Just as long as we're not shoehorning.
I will shoehorn.
I had to fit it in somehow before the show ended. I'm sorry, Dave.
That's okay. I'll let it go. I'm good with that. I'm very good with that. Hey, I could admit, I was just one. It was a boo-boo. Shoehorning people. All right. Science Bob, portals, and shoehorning.
Okay, so the portal stuff. So I don't quite have Jessica's experience, but I've been in the presence of Chris Bledsoe when I saw things pop in and out of existence right in front of my eyes. John Alexander was in the presence of Chris Bledsoe, and he saw a UFO pop into existence right above their car and saw it disappear. So to me, all of these things I've seen, all these things that people report, the things that Jessica reported and so forth, all of that is evidence of something akin to what our imaginations are calling portals. And we just need to keep plugging away till we figure out something. Mike, why do I want it really badly? So we can go visit other planets and not take 1 billion years to get there.
Jessica, I know you're big on the portals. And I know you got to be careful with what you say because your research for your team is kept pretty private on what you guys do. But fill us in on portals, of what you think they are and how they are affecting our realities here that the majority of us are not seeing.
Well, honestly, I have no idea what a portal is. I mean, what I like to think they are is just a way for these beings and for the spacecraft and for the Bigfoots, the aliens, to come in and out of this 3D matrix reality that we're living in right now. Okay, and the more I'm out there and I'm researching, the less I understand, the less I know. Okay, so everything that I thought I knew is totally out the window right now because we do have creatures coming in and out, flashes of light occurring, and then, footsteps stopping, and we can hear things, and then it just disappears. So yeah, I don't know. Not only do we have footprints that stop in the middle of the field as though they just disappeared out of thin air, we have tire tracks as well. Like a vehicle has come into the field, has just shown up out of nowhere or disappeared out of nowhere. So I'm not sure, are they going off planet? Are they just in a different dimension? Is this government related? I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't have any answers for that, but we're out there observing and documenting and trying to figure things out.
When you're out in the field, how do you know if you're in the presence of a portal?
You don't, unless you see it through your equipment.
What do they look like?
Well, the one that we encountered was a big square, a box that just showed up. So yeah, you don't see these things. I mean, the two men that walked inside of this, they didn't know they were walking inside of anything. They just walked to where they were guided to by the other people on the team, and the environment changed.
And
so
you saw this with infrared?
They saw it with their thermal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was just doing a series of interviews, and Jimmy Blanchett is sending radio transmissions out from certain locations on like Earth's power grid. And this ties into portals too. I should have brought this up when I had my turn. So they use the moon as kind of a satellite to bounce back to the Earth from these locations. And it's been so crazy because it's like these power spots on Earth grid are like Giza, and it almost makes this mesh around the whole globe. So I almost wonder if this does tie into like some sort of free energy or harnessing that kind of technology, like groundbreaking, or earth changing moments here. So portals,
Could be. You know, my team, this was actually not the first portal that we had experienced. In a whole other area. We had experienced this once before, but it's not documented. Yeah.
Well, Jimmy's transition, or one of his latest transmissions, they bounced it from Sedona off the moon to Giza, and he had a fellow researcher in Giza that had thermal cameras on the Great Pyramid, and you could see like this flash around the pyramid and a definite like color change. It was so crazy. It's in the interview I just did with that's posted on my YouTube channel. It's towards the end. You can see this footage, and it's just Grant and I were both going, wow. That's like the only thing we could say. But I had never.
I know enough about Bob's background that I think Bob might have some insight into some of these things.
Well, I'm going to tell you where I think people ought to look. I can't believe Nicole hadn't mentioned it. At all of Grant's work, visiting with people on Shasta, going to Zendras and so forth and so on. That stuff sounds so much like portals. I'd love to go up there with one of those things at Shasta with a FLIR and look and see if we can't see kind of this cube thing appearing when whatever these things are come through these Zendras. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I think we can gather. It's time for Cornholio.
What'd you do with Dave?
El Ovni Volador has returned to the show successfully. I kicked Dave out of the studio.
The Shasta footage was neat because you see like this fuzzy, like blackness, like in this area of the forest, and then you see the light being almost frame to frame. But to know that they were in like this CE5, like deep meditation at the time, this opened up. That's what blew my mind. So we have like a oval shaped blackness. There was this thing around the pyramid, and you have a cube, and that's just fascinating to me. It's what do they call
weird?
What is it in Eastern teachings where they fly the light beam, the light crafts, and it's like sacred geometry that spins? That's almost maybe
it looks like Ezekiel's wheel, which is in the Bible.
Sort of, yeah. Almost,
There was some really cool. An artist did a rendition of the UFOs that were described in biblical text. They're absolutely awesome. They like 3D renderings. So
even
cool.
Like Ryan Graves describing the cube in the sphere.
Yes.
Wow. El Volador, what do you think of portals?
Well, I know when I saw my first black triangle, and it hovered over top of my house silently as I was preparing for my latest Lucha Libre match. It literally started disappearing, like it was flying in through a door in the sky. And literally, three of us watched the nose disappear, then the body disappear, and then the back of the triangle disappear, like a door opened in the sky.
Bada bing.
And so El Ovni Volador totally believes that there are portals out there where these craft can enter and exit almost at their own will. It's like they can open these portals up themselves, like a garage door opener or something along those lines.
Okay, you said it. The absolute strangest cases I've encountered researching this have been animals that open up portals. And my favorite are the portal cats. Linda Moulton Howell tells the story of her beloved cat that had just passed that came back to her via a portal. There's another power experiencer in Scotland. Her name is Tress Blair. One of her latest sightings was actually like front page newspapers in Scotland and across the UK. It was great. she even made national news. And she claims to have a few cats that like open up portals between themselves. I just think it's amazing. Like
we have the wolves at the Skinwalker. We have the bulls magically appearing inside of a locked down trailer. I mean, there's so much evidence that something strange is going on. I sure do wish we could do better research.
I like the cat ones because they sort of link to Egypt and being like gatekeepers and things like that.
Quickly here, we're going to switch subjects once again as we head into the final segment, as we got about 7 minutes to go here on the El Ovni Volador Roundtable here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's get into Gary Nolan joining Galileo Project. How important is this addition, Lou, to Avi Loeb and the entire Galileo team to have Gary Nolan now involved?
I think it's great. I'm gonna be curious to see how he's involved in it. I know a lot of these guys just kind of have a sort of advisory role, so I don't know how much of the hard science he'll be doing. I'd love for that he'd be doing some of it. That'd be so awesome. You know, I loved his recent interview on Lex Friedman's channel. It was, I think, the best interview hands down this year, maybe even of last year. And the one thing that he said in that interview that really stuck out to me, and I thought it was just awesome, is, you know, when he goes to dinners at Harvard or any of these Ivy League schools, and they have these private dinners, and inevitably this conversation of UAP comes up. And either somebody at the table, all the time, every single time, and either somebody at the table says, yeah, I have an experience, and shares it, and people take it seriously because there's safety in numbers. And I think that's where this conversation is starting to head in a safeties in numbers kind of thing. So, and it's outside of the community, which is exactly what we want. We want people who normally don't talk about this to start talking about this, especially those in academia, because I think it only helps the conversation. But we also have to be willing to accept whatever academia finds. We have to accept it. So that's why I say manage your expectations and make sure your belief systems are in check, because if academia has an explanation for why cows ended up in a trailer and it doesn't go with what your theory is, you know, just be ready that academia could prove it to be something way more terrestrial or weirder than what we were thinking.
I want people to be cautious about just accepting kind of the first stuff that comes from academia, because I promise you, nobody has stopped trying to beat Albert Einstein's theories into a pulp since the day he was born. Okay, just as I'm just telling you, science people are brutal to each other. They're always trying to find holes in whatever theory there is. So
that's good.
It's good. That's absolutely one. But it doesn't mean you should ignore the findings. You should listen, keep an open mind, and constantly question.
Also be patient. Science takes a long time.
Long
time. We have to be patient. Yeah.
And Avi Loeb is a major deal because he's a department head at Harvard. He's the chair of an institute. He's an institution unto himself in the astronomical community. So it's just
Gary Nolan.
And Gary Nolan. People don't know how important Gary is to everyday medicine for the research he did on mRNA and other things that is now underlying, for example, all the COVID viruses. Gary Nolan is an independent person of his own financial means, deciding to be a part of the academic community at Stanford because he wants to, not because he needs to. He started and sold 5 companies. Gary Nolan is a massive, big deal, and we need to listen to Nolan and Loeb and question what they say and look at their evidence.
That's the hard one. That's a hard one. Do you think this was a publicity stunt to get Gary Nolan, Bob? Or do you
No.
think he's actually going to be a major player like Avi himself?
No, because he has all of that unbelievable equipment that can test materials, right down to the atoms.
I think he said it himself that he doesn't even expect to be like a major player in this because of his background being in like biology instead of, astronomy. But he said with his background and his experience in this field, there's so much he can bring to the plate,
Major science done in this kind of weird new area is going to be multidisciplinary.
Yeah,
You're going to have lots of subject matter experts from different fields to figure crap out.
Yeah, this needs to be well-rounded. It's been compartmentalized for way too long, so it needs to be well-rounded.
Yep.
Well, I hope from an El Ovni Volador position here that Gary Nolan can bring his A game. There are a lot of people behind the scenes that I have been told who are very interested in learning his game. Some that would be very, very well known to the public. Recently, Gary put on Twitter a picture of him and Katy Perry together hanging on out. I've heard that recently, as in the last number of months, that Gary Nolan has met with multimillionaires and billionaires from certain companies that may have a phone company or something along those lines, learning about this subject of UFOs, so that way they can prepare and get ahead of the project as well. Apparently, they are starting to light up some big people who may want to invest in what is the future, not what could be the future, but what is the future. And that's what's very intriguing about it all. And I really believe that Gary Nolan is going to be a huge player moving forward regarding the entire disclosure process, as well as the process of bringing the fact that extraterrestrials are here, they are abducting people, and they are here with a purpose.
UFO royalty in the guise of Jacques Vallée doesn't hang out with just anybody.
You got that right. All right, it's time to wrap up this edition of the SOR Roundtable. We will do it all again next month. So I want to say a big thank you to our great panel tonight from UCR, Lou Jimenez, from Into the Portal, Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress, Jones, cookologist Nicole Sakach, author and researcher of UFOs, Science Bob McGwier, who will talk next week on the big show, and Bruce Claggett from BFC Communications out of Vancouver, British Columbia. What a panel, what a show indeed. We should also give a shout out to the UFO Garage and little Benny Jenkins for joining us for the short time that he did. However, he had to leave early because his only a couple-month-old little girl said, "Daddy, get in here. We need you here. I need you, man." So big thank you to all of you for tuning us in, as well as our great audience in the chat rooms tonight and all the veterans who are tuning us on in. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We own the night.
Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Yeah.
That's a good show, people. That's a good show.
Oh, it was great.
Good
I had a
time.
fantastic time.
That was fun.
It was fun.
Thanks so much, Dave. I'm still here.
I know you are.
Who is that?
Who is that ghost?
Lou, I wanted to tell you at the top of the show or the very beginning when we were talking about your show for a little bit. Like, I love the episodes where your dad joins. And
yeah,
honestly,
I haven't had my dad on in a while. He's been so busy with work.
It's like, it's so inspired me to like push this ufology envelope with my own dad. Like, he's always just kind of let me do my own thing, and now I'm kind of more in his face about it. So I'm completely inspired. I love it. So
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think getting my dad on is always fun because he's so technologically he's all fun. It's funny, he created the first like wholesale phishing website on the internet.
wow.
But he's a complete idiot when it comes to live streaming, and it's so funny when he's like knocking lights over or his camera goes out of focus and he wears these sunglasses. I'm like, Dad, why are you wearing sunglasses indoors? What's happening? He's like, oh, it's my prescription. It's my prescription. I'm like, don't you have other glasses? He's just a riot. I mean, he's got like a purple mohawk. He's almost 70, and the dude is rocking a purple.
Oh, that's so awesome. So
good
awesome.
for him.
Yeah,
he's exactly.
He's such a goofball. Yeah, I got to get his ass back on the show because he is fun.
It. No.
Yeah.
I'll make my dad watch an episode with me sometime. That'll be glorious. Like, and it's actually funny because I would talk to James Fox about the phenomenon before it came out, and I'm like, my dad's finally gonna get it. I made him watch it, and he's like, yeah, I get why you do what you do now. That was like all I got from him. But now, like, since your show, I've like built on that. I'm like, well, Dad, like, what about this? And he was actually hospitalized last year and he had a quadruple bypass surgery. And I knew he was all, thinking he was not going to come out of that surgery. So I was like, have you started seeing dead people yet? Did your brother come and visit you? And he's all like, what? I'm like, this is a thing. If you're going to go, you're going to get visited. Something's going to come. You're going to have one of those high strangeness moments. And once he said no, I was like, there you go. You're good to go. See you after surgery, Pop. Yeah. So he is starting, and it might just be this whole life-changing, time in his life, but he is coming around. So you do some shows with your dad, and I'll keep pushing my dad.
In general, just keep up the great work, Lou. UCR is great. It's fantastic.
Appreciate it, Bob. I really do. Coming from you, that's a true honor.
It was lovely. I was in the chat room during your show the other night. So it was
thank you.
Panel tonight. And
sweet. Thanks. Man, it was so nice meeting you and everybody, man. This was fun. Yeah.
Bruce, it's so wonderful to have a real journalist on SOR.
Oh, yeah. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, Bruce, I got your Twitter. I saw you on Twitter here, so I'll hit you up in here in the next.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Would love to.
We'll have a conversation.
Love to come on. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Sunday, we're
whenever. I'm easy. Monday, I'm busy because Sunday's great.
Perfect. I like Sundays. I get to sleep in, but ta-ta for now, y'all. It's been wonderful.
Good night, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
See you, Nicole. Take care, buddy.
Bye, Ella.
Bye. Bye, Nicole.
Dave safely.
Have a good night.
Dave, thanks for having me on for all of us.
Good night, Dave.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. I got to
No
go get to bed. It's 3 and I got a show tomorrow. So,
Oh no. Oh no.
Good luck with your show.
thank you. Lou, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, pleasure was mine, Jessica.
I'll see you on KGRA, dude.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Good night.
All right. Good night, guys. Good night, Dave. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thank you.
All right. See you, buddy.
Bye.
Dave, thanks for having me. It was fun, man.
Pleasure, buddy.
Ciao,
Pleasure.
bud.
You take care.
Yep.
And then there was El Ovni Volador, all alone on top of the ranks once again. There is no way that I could be defeated. No way. And yes, I can honestly say I would take a steel chair to Vladimir Putin, and he would never get up. Dirtbag. Scumbucket. There's nobody who can defeat El Ovni Volador. Nobody. Good night, Science Bob. Right, that's the end. I think I screwed up here. Any questions? Put them in capital letters if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. All right, where the hell is the start of this? That's the end. Right there. What the Sam hell is going on here? Cut.
My opinion.
Do not, he says, read between the lines of what I'm saying, people. Okay, is he teasing? Where the hell did this go? Hold on a second here. I'm all screwed up. Undo. Undo. Let's go back over here. Let's go here to here. Calgary Stampede could not hold my left buttocks cheek compared to me in the squared circle. In the search kit behind me, that's a bunch of spaced out radio stickers. There it is. Finally. Put that about there. That looks good. is not the start of it. Did it again. Son of a wife. Did it again. That one, that was drawn to me by a fan of Carl. Yeah. Damn Carl. All right. So that's the that you have here because
cases.
That's here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio.
Everything we know, everything in response changed.
Oh, shut up. There we go. Cut. 20-some minutes later. Let's go here. And Vegas, April 22nd to 24th. I will not be there because I am too good for your party. Dave Scott will be there because that's kind of his thing. I don't want to start a brawl. I don't want to take all the ladies away. I don't want to take all the pride and the glory of my presence of El Omni Volador hanging out in Vegas with scum like Dave Scott. No, I will not be there. But Dave Scott will be there April 22nd and 24th doing his hillbilly woo thing. No, I won't be there. I've got better things to do, like cut my fingernails, trim my toes, and wax my beautiful mustache. That's what I will be doing that weekend. Way more important than hanging out with Dave Scott and a bunch of weirdos. That's for sure. You are blessed to have me, Thurston. Blessed to have me. If you go to spacedoutradio.com, you can pick up your El Ovni Volador t-shirt, the greatest t-shirt ever known to mankind. Right there. I'm going to show it to you, peons. So that way you can actually get a look at what perfection looks like. Right there. Oh, just look at that. Look how beautiful I look. That is championship material right there. The rest of you can only dream of being like me. Look at how beautiful I look. Look how beautiful I am. By the way, I actually designed a brand new shirt for Spaced Out Radio. Let me show it to you. Look at this beautiful one right here. The Bob Lazar shirt. Team Lazar right there. Who's on Team Lazar? And then on the back, we have the UFO. The sport model right there. Yeah. I know you people can't handle my beautiful perfection. I'm telling you, when you're this good, like El Ovni Volador, it is hard to be humble. Hard to be humble. Who the heck do you think you are, Mystics Walk? Who do you think you are? You shouldn't even be making eye contact with me right now. El Ovni Volador is sick to my stomach. You make me want to puke with comments like that. Uncivilized person. Holy cow. Who let you in the back door? Make me want to puke. Insulting El Ovni Volador like that. Who do you think you are? You should bow to my presence. Bow, I say. Denny Lemieux had it correct. Make me want to puke. The fans make me want to puke. Tired of all of you people. That's right, Fab 22. El Ovni Volador perfection would scare off abductors back to oblivion. That's right. That's right. I can't help it. The ladies love me. The doggies love me. The donkeys love me. The luchadors hate me. I can't go out in public because every man is jealous and every woman swoons. Oh, it's a tough, tough life. Tough, tough life. That's right. Michael Gutierrez knows what's good for him. Look at him. I'd let you wax my wrestling boots. I would. I'm not going to lie, Michael Gutierrez. You can clean my wrestling boots anytime you want. You're a good man. You're a good, good man. Had enough of you people. Make me sick to my stomach. I'm going to get the hell out of here pretty damn quick. People make me sick. Look at that dirty filth. He's a six-toed sloth. Dirty, filthy, six-toed sloth. That's his real name. I'm out of here. You guys are terrible. Terrible. Sickening people. Get the hell out of here. Garbage and bullshit. Oh. Sorry about that. The jerk locked me in the bathroom. Sorry about that. Why am I wearing headphones? I don't even need to anymore. Doug, lay down. Come here. Come here. Good boy. He's such a jerk. I hate him. Oh, Duke, it doesn't surprise me that prick. He's a jerk. I'm sorry. Every now and again, he just, comes in. He's just a massive asshole. Can't stand the guy. Can't stand him. Don't forget, tomorrow, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, it is Women in Ufology. Lynn Wallington has a major conference going on right here on our YouTube channel tomorrow. The names are incredible. You can head to our website, check it all out. It's all right there. Hi, Robert Moore. How are you? Eva. Gorgeous D. Ocean Swagger. How are you? Justin Maynard. What will be the first buffet you hit up in Vegas? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm heading straight for tacos. That's what I want. Heading straight for tacos. Or Taco Bell. One of the two. I'm going to be friggin' hungry. Hey, it's little Tommy Fessler. How are you, buddy? Great show tonight, man. Thank you for that super chat. We love the guys from Disclosure tonight coming on in here. They always set us up beautifully for every show. And we love you guys, man. Thank you so much. Little Tommy Fessler. The Bully Slayer. Eva, I'm sure your hair looks beautiful. I'm sure it does. All right, people, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to call it the night. Don't forget about Lynn Wallington tomorrow and the amazing Women in Ufology conference tomorrow. It's all on our website. It's all right here on our YouTube channel. 6 hours of great show for you tomorrow. And then the after hours show that night with Big Willie, Gemma Jade, John Hudson, and Thin Lizzy. Love you all. Thank you so much for the super chats tonight. And we'll see you all tomorrow.